You are listening to the Hello Sport podcast.
Is this your... Have you got your own gym?
Yeah, this is my
it,
gym.
eh?
Yeah.
Just trying to work... Because I know I've seen your training and shit on your social. I wasn't sure if you were...
Yeah.
We'll pump it up.
So I only opened it 2 weeks ago.
Oh, hectic.
2204 is...
We rolling, Toby?
Postcode. Yeah, just down the road.
Love that.
Yeah.
She only opened it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What's that fucking experience like?
It's full on. Like the full on part starts now with all the marketing and stuff and, getting people through the doors, sales. Like I've never really done face-to-face sales before, having to sell something. Like sign up to the gym, pay your weekly fee, that kind of thing. It's pretty full on. And sales calls.
Like cold calling people?
Not cold calling, like we got social ads running and all that, but calling someone and being like, hey, you've left a lead form. Do you want to sign up to my gym? I'm like, whoa, that's full on.
How do you say it's the missile?
No.
You don't open with the missile?
You don't open with the missile?
No. So I had one of my mates.
You should do A/B testing, like open with the missile versus not opening with the missile.
See how you go.
I had one of my mates in the gym when I was doing a couple of calls, and I was just like, hey, it's James from Tribe Marrickville. He's like, mate, why don't you say Magnussen? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, drop your name, bro. Drop it in there. Imagine like that would get spun out. I was like, I just can't bring myself to say it.
Yeah.
And also it feels weird. Like, I own the gym, but I'm also like the shit kicker doing the phone calls as well.
Yeah.
You got to do it the hard ways. Maybe even try, two-time world champion, Olympic silver medalist.
What about
James Magnussen.
hanging out in the confectionery aisle at like a Woolies or some shit and just go, like, just handing out flyers to fatties as they make their way down with like a pack of Mars bars or some shit?
It could
Do
work.
we feel like there's something there?
Look,
you got to try different things, right?
it's ABC testing. Just see what works. Maybe even get into the aisle with your shirt off and point at your Olympic tat. I'm assuming you've got one.
You've got an Olympic tat.
Yeah, I got the tat.
Yeah. Do you have to get it?
Well, that's the thing. It's become super popular. So I think as tattoos became popular, the Olympic tat is like almost compulsory now. So I remember when I was a little kid, I reckon it was the Sydney Olympics. I remember saying, and tattoos weren't around much. Like we're talking 20 years ago. This is like pre-Sunny Bill with the big
the Williams on the back.
across the back.
Post Malone.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing one on Susie O'Neill.
No, or Thorpe or Hackey, any of those guys. They're all
Did Klim
clean
have one?
skins.
Don't think so.
Don't think so. And I remember seeing this guy at the Sydney Olympics. It wasn't a big name. It was an Aussie guy, and he had a little Olympic rings on his chest. And I said to Mum, do you reckon I could get that if I made the Olympics? And she goes, that is the only tattoo I would be happy with you getting is if you went to the Olympics. And it was all just like, as if. Never going to happen. And then when I got there, I was like, oh shit, we got to get this thing.
Here we go, Mum.
Yeah, by the time I got there, everyone's getting them. And this is my general rule of thumb. Like depending how good you are is how big you get the Olympic rings.
Oh, okay.
So if you're pretty good, they're like subtle. As you get to like the hanger-oners, it's like boom, massive Olympic rings on the chest.
So they get bigger the shittier you are.
Full chest.
Yeah. Like one's so big that if you like leave a couple of buttons undone on the shirt, they're like, this guy's an Olympian.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas
They're
like,
poking through.
if you got like an Ariane Titmus, right, you see her in a nightclub or something, you're like, oh, it's Ariane Titmus. I know when she went to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But you see some young 18-year-old kid from like Townsville, you're like, who's this guy? And then it's like, boom, Olympian.
That's so true. I almost had to get the Olympic rings tattooed last year. It was like
Really?
a weight loss challenge I had to do.
Yeah.
It was like if I didn't lose, I think it was like 10 kilos inside of 3 months, I had to get them. And I was like,
ooh.
nothing would look worse. I mean, obviously, like if you were an Olympian and you've lost, you've put on weight post-career, a flabby Olympic
Like a Jeff
rings,
Hugel.
Shout
He
out to
fluctuated.
Skippy,
an overweight Olympic rings on someone who's been to the Olympics is fine, but on just like a sloppy nobody,
On a civilian.
to have the Olympic rings, like it would have just been so embarrassing to
Did you get
exist
to
on the
pick
beach.
placement?
I was saying I wanted it here because that's where everyone got
On
them.
the ribs?
Yeah, that's like where the
Yeah.
Olympians get it.
Is that where yours is?
I went ribs.
Yeah.
I think I was one of the first to go ribs. It's become like pretty mainstream. It used to be pec. Pec was a spot.
What, above your heart?
Yeah, probably. I reckon so. Yeah. Now there's wrist, ankle, all that sort of jazz. But I've seen a couple of young boys from recent Olympics just go like so large.
Oh, go bold.
I've even seen a couple go like full massive Olympic rings and then Citius Altius, Fortius.
That's the whole.
faster, stronger, higher, or something like that.
Yeah.
They're like, not only did we go to the Olympics, we know the motto.
That is fucking dribbly.
I have a mate who I'm not going to name.
That.
I got a mate who I won't name, but his name is James, but obviously not Magnussen. He was quick in year 12 at sprinting.
I think I know this man.
That was it. He was quick.
Yeah.
And he might have gone to whatever the fucking the tournament is for if you're good.
Regionals.
Regionals.
State.
Regionals,
And he
yeah,
got the data fight or whatever at Latin Olympic motto tattooed.
No, he
on his
didn't.
torso.
Oh,
He's still
my
got it. We give him shit about it to this day.
Dude,
Yeah.
that is outrageous.
Yeah, it's
I often-
fantastic.
So I didn't know that saying until I saw a few blokes get it tattooed. And then I was like, these new sports like breakdancing, for example, at the next Olympics, how does that fit into faster, stronger, higher?
It doesn't
Like
really.
we're
No, it
getting
doesn't. We're
that
getting
shits me.
ridiculous.
Well,
Are
unless you spin faster.
Yeah,
And bounce, pop higher.
Pop higher and
What's the other one? Harder,
and stronger.
stronger.
I'd be happy if they culled it to probably, like, I'll piss off a lot of people here, but like maybe 5 sports.
Really?
Like running, swimming, track cycling, gymnastics, like a weightlifting or a fighting or something. Like, let's start culling.
You'd trim it right.
trim
bro.
it. Shit out of
even like your javelins and your discuses.
Well, that's track.
Yeah, I just group it in
athletics.
track.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Like athletics, swimming.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're your main 2 always. But then I'd cull it down to like I like track cycling. That's pretty fun to watch.
The velodrome stuff, I don't
Yeah.
mind.
Pretty cool. And
Yeah.
then some of those crashes at the Com Games were pretty wild. That was good
humongous.
content. Yeah. And when you
Everyone
go to
okay?
like I've spent my whole life training in institutes and stuff, like in gyms, and the strongest guys in the gym are always the track cyclists. Like the biggest, loudest, baddest dudes, track
really?
cyclists.
Well,
Yeah.
You see their legs,
Well, the
bro.
quads,
They're
yeah.
like.
Do we think
unbel-
quads maketh the man?
Oh yeah.
Well, if quads
and
maketh the
arse.
man, they're all men.
And you know what? Not to insert myself here, but one of the reasons my knees are so bad, poor quads. So
Oh, you know
All
quads.
I'm no quads.
You wouldn't imagine you in the lycra with the really fast helmet in the
Yeah.
velodrome, dude. Fuck, you'd fall back. You'd fall so heavy.
Put me alongside world record time and just watching me get lapped.
Yeah, the line. Yeah.
I've always thought with the track cycling, like, there's a fair bit of pressure to be pieced up in that sport because the outfits.
It's all pressure.
Oh, don't you think it's the pressure to be pieced up in swimming?
Yeah, so swimming is an interesting one, right? So if you saw those little shorts we wear off the body, they're like a little pair of boxer shorts for like a 6-year-old kid. They're tiny. So to physically get into them, you got to go a tuck method.
Okay. So you're basically just mashing
By
it all up
the
anyway.
time you walk out, you look like a Ken doll.
Right.
So you must
You got to tuck.
tuck.
Yeah.
proper tuck?
Hey?
Then are you like bulldogging out the back? Or is it just
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
all just sort of...
Nah, tuck straight back in between and get the separation.
Is it
of
like
the
a
nuts.
Wow.
is it like a Silence of the Lambs situation with
Buffalo Bill.
With Buffalo Bill? Is it like that? Yeah.
And
right.
I remember I was watching.
You got to go full Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching a race with my missus during the Com Games, and I went, he's gone to the side. Like as they stood up behind the blocks, I was like, he's gone the sidewinder. It's
So
over.
as in up front and to the
yeah,
side.
yeah. And I could see it as he walked out behind the blocks. I was like, that race is over.
So do you reckon it's going to slow you down having it out the front?
It's just you're just gonna feel it,
Right.
and you don't want to be thinking about it. You want to be thinking about anything but
You
what
want
your
to
jump's
be,
doing.
for all intents and purposes, dickless on the blocks.
Dickless, full Ken doll.
Did you ever tape it up?
Nah, never taped.
Like you didn't tape it into
No,
your cheeks?
but you spend so much time putting these suits on.
Yeah.
And the biggest panic you'll ever get. So to put that little pair of pants on might take 20 minutes.
No.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. And they're made of really coarse material. So what ends up happening, you end up pulling the skin off your knuckles by the end of the week when you put a number on. So sometimes you're about to walk out for a World Champs final and you're pissing blood out of your hands trying to pull this suit on and tuck your...
Jesus.
Do you have,
your
do you have
meat in the veg.
handlers? Do you have people to help? Or-
No, the
Is that-
Australians don't. But
Yeah, I bet you the Yanks have got tuckers.
not the Yanks. Sun Yang.
He had tuckers, that
So
morgue
Sun
mouth
Yang-
cheating bastard.
Sun Yang used to do his
Allegedly.
warm up, walk into the change rooms and just stand there naked, like Jesus on the cross, and he'd have these little Chinese blokes like rushing about him, pulling up his suit. And the reason it's burnt into my head, it was just like a mass of pubes.
Song Yang.
Well, he's like trying to be bred as like the perfect specimen, and you need like no drag.
So obviously swimmers like all shaved down everywhere. So his legs shaved down. I don't know. I don't think he even get torso hair. I'm not sure. But then just like boom, massive pubes.
Just bushed
And
up.
you could barely see anything for pubes. Like, I don't reckon he's ever even trimmed on with a pair of scissors ever.
And it was there. I mean, I don't want you to necessarily put Sun Yang's business in the streets, but it's safe to assume not much.
Not much
to tuck.
Not much doing. Yeah.
So like the opposite of Matt Shervington.
Yeah, opposite of Shervo, opposite of the lunchbox.
You were never. Shervo was retired before your time.
Yeah.
In the swimming circles, and I don't know if you are at liberty to disclose such things, but who was the Shervo of the pool?
Oh, the Shervo of the pool.
Yeah.
Probably one.
Shout out to SEN for having this on.
Probably. There's a couple. One like less known one was a bloke that did 200 butterfly called Grant Irvine. So you think like if you're willing to do 200 butterfly at an elite level, you're probably pieced up. Like it takes a set of nuts to do that.
Why? Because it's so
hard. That's the hardest event.
Right.
4 laps of butterfly.
That's
is that like a prerequisite to probably getting a start? Is whip it out?
I'd say so. Well, remember Nick Darcy was the 200 butterflyer.
Nick Darcy,
Like
yes.
never seen him in the change rooms, but I would imagine based off his behaviour that he's hogged up.
Yeah, he did carry himself like a man that was dicked up.
Yeah. The other one was my relay teammate James Roberts. Was well renowned for being hogged up.
Okay.
And he was living and swimming at the AIS, and apparently got about his work down there at the AIS.
Really?
Yeah. Amongst all the sports.
Good for him.
So he went to the Olympics with you?
He went to the Olympics, yeah.
So obviously I'm not an Olympian. I don't know if that's going to shock the listener, but I'm not. I do, however, as most listeners will probably agree, we've heard rumours about the Olympics, particularly ones that weren't riddled with COVID. So you were at London and Rio, both pre-COVID, where the rumour is that athletes like to,
fuck.
Chong.
Chong. Fuck.
Chong.
A lot of
Get
chonging.
down to business.
Yeah.
Now, is that sort of information circulated around? Like, listen, my mate's hogged up. Like, is that sort of rumour going around
Here's one.
the accommodation?
Yeah.
The village?
I was talking to...
Is there a notice board?
I was talking to Matt White the other night on SEN. We're doing the Com Games commentary. And the athletics was on, and we're watching, and there was a particular runner, female runner. And so basically in this, you'll have a building of a country. So we've got a high-rise building, and it's all Australians in that building. And the swim team will be on 1 or 2 levels. Like one level might be all the male swimmers, and one level is all the female swimmers. And people will come looking for a scalp in the swim team. So there's a specific runner that was just
in the sense that, like, because the swimmers are all kind of like athletic and hot. Is it like people coming to the? Is the
Oh,
swim
I
team
think
like the most?
Is the swimmer a big scalp? Is that the big scalp?
like the
so
most coveted.
I think in Australia it's the big scalp.
Yeah.
They're probably the most well known.
Yeah.
Get the most media coverage, that kind of thing. So it was a well known female athletics girl that was hanging around the male swim team.
An
level.
Australian athlete?
Australian. Yeah. And she was on the search for a medalist, I reckon. She wanted a big scalp.
Who doesn't?
And by by week 2, she settled for a heat swimmer of a medley event. So
Well, you take what you can get.
Absolutely. You do.
Yeah. You start going for the big scalp, and if it gets to week 2 and push comes to shove,
Then a medley
you just-
event will do.
That must be one of the great leg ups as a swimmer, to know that you're swimming week 1, you've got week 2
It's good.
to get down to business, as it were. Would any of the swimmers like wear the medallion on the job?
Ooh,
Sure.
I haven't heard of it, but surely it would happen. It would,
It would
have
shock
to
me
happen.
if it didn't happen.
Yeah. Particularly, I guess, with like the thing with the village is like, yeah, there's a bit of chonging going on between countries and stuff like that, but people are competing right up till the end. So for swimmers, we get to go out, like we finish in 7 days. The Olympics goes for 14 or 16 or something. So I remember London, it just turned into like this full bender. It was like 8-9 days. It was like schoolies. Probably one of the best weeks of my life, that second week after the swimming was done.
Yeah.
And a bunch of Australian sponsors and like different prominent Australians had opened like pop-up nightclubs and stuff like that. That was just like rolling out the red carpet for Aussie athletes. And so that is like the best part of it as a swimmer is like, yep, like all the pressure's like intense up front. And as Australians, we're like, the swim team better fucking perform.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's done. Boom, let's go. And the athletics people are just starting to get in their work, and you're like, suck it.
Sucked in. Like you got the marathon or something like last day.
Yeah.
That'd be awful. Or like even all the team events have to play the whole time.
And it starts getting like a bit noisy in the village and stuff. And like we're rolling in at 4 a.m. and the runners are like trying to sleep because they've got to get up at 7 to go do their heats and stuff. So it gets a bit scat for those guys towards the end.
Does that become an issue? Like,
yeah,
do you get in trouble for making too much noise?
I think it's like a lot of sports. It's definitely gotten better, but certainly when I first came in, a lot of sports didn't like the swim team because of that reputation. I think because they were also seen as like the rock stars kind of, which is like kind of bullshit. Like it's a pretty chill team once you get to know the people on it. But they didn't like that, and they didn't like the fact that we'd finish early and get a bit rowdy while everyone else is trying to compete.
Did you kind of feel like rock stars a little bit though? Like whether you're like, I guess, in the moment you may be unaware of it, like how you might feel, but like because you're the fucking Aussie swim team, it's like you're the cricketers of the pool. Yeah,
it's a weird one because it sneaks up on you. And it's not until you look back on it after your career and you're like, holy shit, that was like a pretty big deal. But when you live it, it's just life and you come to deal with it. But in hindsight, some of the stuff that I went through throughout my career and some of the publicity and stuff like that, I'm like, whoa, that got pretty loose there for a while. Yeah, right? It got intense.
That would have been an intense period of your life to go. How old are you when all that was it London
when
where it was
popped
sort of
off,
like the shit was popping off?
Yeah, like 20.
You were 20.
Were you 20?
Yeah, 20. So I'm 31 now.
Wow.
So I was 20 at the time.
Which is funny because I remember at the time, and I don't know, well, I would have been older than you actually, but like to see it through a lens of someone a bit older now and like being 20 and having to go through that sort of scrutiny.
Yeah.
That must have been fucking overwhelming.
It was pretty overwhelming, like particularly given my background and my upbringing. So like born and raised in Port Macquarie, had a very humble, quiet upbringing and was never touted as the next big thing or anything, and kind of burst onto the scene around 18, won my first world title, just turned 20 and went into that Olympics as the world champ. And I remember... So I went over to China to swim the World Championships. No one really expected much of me, and like caused a big upset and became the first world champ for Australia in the 100 free. So 100 free is like the event, right?
Yeah, it's like the 100-meter sprint.
It's the hot boy event.
Yeah, and whilst it's the big event, Australia's never been good at it. We've always been good at the long stuff. You think like Perkins, Hackett, Thorpe, we're always good at the long stuff. And so suddenly we went, oh shit, we got a guy in the main event, and I think that kind of like snowballed everything a bit. So went over to China, won that world title, and then went on a holiday afterwards with my mum and my little brother. We just went to Beijing, and complete anonymity, like no one knew who we were, just won a world title, but didn't really sink in. Flew home with mum and my little brother, and we get off the plane at the international airport, and there was just cameras everywhere and reporters with like mics in my face, like bright lights flashing. I was like, oh shit, like this is me now. Like, and that was kind of like the before and after. I can live my life normally, and now I'm this guy that is expected to be a role model and uphold these standards and represent his country. And there was a definite period in my life where it's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah. How intense, dude. Like
20 years of age is not old at all.
Well,
Young. Yeah.
Dude, young.
Incredibly young.
But how old were you at this when you came back from the World Champs? You 20 then?
I just turned.
Just turned 20.
Yeah.
And
just before
so,
that
what did you
Olympics.
do in that moment when you saw these cameras? Were you like, you weren't even tipped off that this was happening? You sort of get off the plane.
Nah. Yeah. Like, I guess because I was in China, and when we went to China, they like made us switch off our roaming and all this stuff because they've got all these weird
Shout
laws
out
over there
China.
about what you can search on the internet and stuff. And they're like, oh, we got all the young boys in the swim team. Like, let's just chop this.
That's eyes up.
Yeah, it's eyes up.
That's eyes up.
It's eyes up.
Rugby league could learn a thing or two from that sort of policy.
Yeah, and so I hadn't been reading or watching or hearing anything, which was like pure ignorant bliss. And so apparently what happened, they had that World Champs. It was the first year we'd gone from Channel 9 prime time to 1 HD. Remember that shitty channel?
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
meant to be,
yeah.
the sports
We were
channel.
talking about that the other day.
We were
funnily
actually
enough.
talking about it with Joel.
Yeah, sure you can.
So swimming went to 1 HD, which was just the dumbest move ever. Anyway, so they're putting swimming on late at night after like reruns of MASH, because by this time they've figured out that 1 HD is just tanked.
Yeah.
And then leading into the final of that 100 free, I'd swum a fast heat, fast semi, and I was going in favourite for the final. And they broadcast it live on Channel 10, interrupted, I think, Neighbours or whatever it was, like 7:30.
Dr. Carl cheating on his missus again. We have to interrupt this broadcast.
7:30, Channel 10, like the only race they broadcast live. So everyone ended up seeing it or heard about it. And I didn't know any of that, and got home and I was just like, whoa, like this is really different. And I think the thing I found the hardest with all of that was I was a good swimmer, but I'm not like a swimming guy. Like I'm not a student of the sport as such. I remember lining up in that final at the World Champs, and I didn't even know half the people I was racing. Like I hadn't studied who my competition was. I hadn't watched a heap of swimming leading into it. In my spare time, like I could count on one hand the number of times I've spoken about swimming with my mates in my life. Like my mates at school, I think when I first made the Australian team, they were like, oh shit, is he that good? Like we...
Yeah, right.
Like I never spoke about it. I'd win national titles at school and stuff and be going junior Australian teams, and they wouldn't even speak about it at the school assembly. That wasn't my thing.
Why didn't you speak about it? Were you just not interested particularly, or were you shy and didn't want to sort of show that side of yourself?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think like I enjoyed swimming, but it was almost like a separate world that stayed separate from my mates at school. And my mates, like I've had swimming mates and stuff, but I had my school mates that I was tighter with, and we just never spoke about it. And I was more into my rugby league. I think
Who
probably
do you go for?
the Bulldogs.
Tough. Carry on.
Tough. Yeah.
Potentially on the up though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Prefer to be them than Manly at this point.
Well,
Oof.
or the Tigers.
Or the Tigers. But Manly
Yeah.
in turmoil.
Yeah, but Manly will come and
Manly
rise
will
again.
come,
And
yeah,
we'll win
but,
the
you
comp
know,
next year.
Tigers
so
will
then,
never rise.
No, they won't.
No.
They're fucked.
Yeah, they're
Anyway.
fucked, at least for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was more into football. I think like that was just more the popular sport at school. So I played footy. My email, remember you'd have the MSN,
Yep.
and my
MSN
email,
Messenger.
MSN Messenger. My MSN was the next Sunny Bill. Hotmail.com.
The next Sonny Bill.
Wow.
All right.
I was obsessed with Sunny Bill.
Really? Well, fair.
Yeah.
Who wasn't?
No.
Yeah.
So then do you think that when it like, yeah, you've come back, won the World Champs, then it's getting to the Olympics, it seems like you weren't necessarily the type of guy who warmed to or thrived under the spotlight necessarily.
Yeah.
Did you feel like a pressure to be that guy though?
Yeah, so I worked, like I had to convince myself that, like, you know in the 100 metres running, you see the bravado, and like those guys are the most confident guys in the world.
Yeah, like Usain Bolt, Maurice Green, like their tongues out, they're loving it.
Yeah, so the 100 freestyle, whilst it's like less upfront showy, it's a similar mentality. You got like, to win that event, you're the fastest swimmer in the world. Potentially at that time, you're the fastest swimmer in history, right? And so it's like a bit of a weird thing to get your head around. Like, before I get on those blocks, I got to think I'm the best before I can win. And that was always my thing. I've got to believe that I'm going to win before I can win. I've never gone into a race and gone, oh, shock me, I just won and I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. And so you got to, like, I worked really hard on building that bravado and that kind of confidence. And that was part of it for me was, I wouldn't say I'm introverted, but like I'm not super outgoing, like don't make friends that easily and stuff like that. So I had to like kind of put on this front that like, yeah, I'm this super confident guy that's ready to go out there, represent the country and like be the fastest swimmer in the world. And then around that time, around London, I think that like probably started to seep a little bit into my general life and the lines were becoming blurred between like this persona that I had to have to be the best in swimming. And the problem was like everywhere I went, like I go to get groceries at the local store and people are stopping me like, yeah, the missile, like you're the best.
It's a fucking good nickname.
Yeah.
It's a ripper nickname. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Were you getting stopped like all the time?
Like every 5 meters.
Bruh.
Like swimming's just one of those sports when it happens, it friggin' happens. You know what I mean? Like, and I remember they did these metrics with my management at the time. Like they do it for sponsors or whatever. It's like recognizability, and it kind of determines your value in the third party world, right? Getting sponsors and stuff. And I think they did like an Australian cricketer or something. It's like 80% recognizability or something. Leading into that London Olympics, I think I was like 96% recognizability when they test it with an audience. So of every 100 people they test, 96 of them.
Wow.
No,
That is crazy.
Crazy, scary.
Yeah, I was going to say, right?
Yeah,
That'd be overwhelming.
scary
but,
and like
Intense.
just can never get away from not who you are, but like what you do. And so for me, who like has never really identified as a swimmer and kind of is very quiet in that sense, to just be constantly like, boom, missile. I'm like, whoa, like chill. Yeah.
Were you given any tools or advice from your management or from Swimming Australia or from like Australian Olympic Committee on how to deal with any of this? Or you like literally winging it?
Winging it. Like winging it like just by the seat of my pants. Like I remember, so I did an interview or something and like hammed it up a bit. I think it was leading into the Olympic trials. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to swim fast or whatever. And I remember Swimming Australia were like, yeah, all right, like you can play it down a bit, but whatever, like we love it. And then I swam like the fastest time ever in the 100 freestyle at that trials. And
so you got the world record?
Yeah, well, without you remember they got the suits, pro suits.
Was this after that?
Yeah, after the suits.
So it was the fastest time in the non-super suit era.
But
So
the
the
super suit
fastest-
time still stood?
Yes.
Stood, yeah, it's weird.
It's only just been broken.
Yeah. So without the super suits, the fastest time ever was Van den Hoogenband. Remember him?
Yes, I do. Thorpe's great nemesis.
He beat Thorpe in the 200 metre free
Yeah,
at
in
Sydney.
Yeah. So he
Fuck
went.
that guy, by the way.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. He went 47.8 without the super suit. Then I come out without it and go 47.1. So like,
Oh, wow.
blow it way out. And so people are freaking out. And I got out of the water after that race and Howie's there. Remember Howie?
Howie of Howie Games.
Yeah,
Fox
yeah,
Howie.
yeah. Channel 10 Howie.
Yeah.
And we do this interview and he goes, just out of nowhere, he goes, what have you got to say to the rest of the world? And puts the mic in my face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. And I'm in like,
Just a post swim, you like jacked up?
jacked up. And I'm like, brace yourself. Everyone's like, And remember,
shit.
before this, Swimming Australia said to me like, maybe play it down a bit. After that, they like got massive click-throughs on all these articles. The ratings went right up. Replays of the race went nuts. So Swimming Australia comes to me and go, you know what you did there after that race? They're like, we love it. Like, go for it. Let's ham this thing up. Let's
Go hard.
Let's go.
Brace yourself is
And,
good.
It is good.
It's
It
good.
is good, dude. It's
And
It's got me pumped up.
And you know what ended up happening? So about, it must have been a couple of months after that swim, they released a Game of Thrones season or episode or something, and one of the guys goes, brace yourself, winter's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Or winter's coming, brace yourself, or
yourself.
something
Yeah.
like that. And then there was all these memes going around of like, me on Ned Stark's body saying like, brace yourself, the missile's coming and stuff like that. So it's just weird timing, but that moved the needle for swimming. It was probably the first time in a while where they're like, fuck, we got one here.
Yeah.
And so they started going like, yeah, this is it now. Like, let's push this narrative. So then I started feeling like a little bit of pressure of like, oh shit, I said that before. Like,
now
do
I have to
keep
like ramping it up?
Yeah, it was just this really awkward spot I found myself in, and like I never felt comfortable in it. But it almost became a thing that I felt like I had to do when I was on camera or something like that.
Yeah.
And still to this day, people meet me and they're like, oh, that's like not what I expected. Like, I thought you were up yourself or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, like it's two different things. And,
Yeah.
and in Australia, we have a real problem understanding the difference between like confidence and arrogance. Like, you tread a fine line, you do. And I understand that. Like, at times, I'll admit arrogance took over from confidence. But I'm trying to be the fastest man in history. Like, fucking hell, if I can't.
I got to swing my dick a little bit.
You're also trying to let the rest of the world know that you're not to be fucked with.
Yeah,
and that you just run the fastest time in history.
It's funny though, right? Because like you do love it as the audience, or like if you're swimming Australia, like you love what it brings. That brace yourselves and all that shit. But they're not forgiving if you don't back it up. It's basically like, unless you fucking win, dude.
Yeah, big time. And it probably, you know what it did that I didn't really realize it. Like, it put more pressure on me at the time.
Yeah.
But it also, there's like a large portion of the population that wants to see the world burn, right? And
Oh yeah.
What it did was just put me like square in their crosshairs. So they're like, we're just waiting for this guy to trip up. Like, I reckon they'd pre-written the DMs and just sat on it and gone, let's just wait until this guy slips up and then we'll hit enter.
And just go for it.
Yeah. So I opened myself up to that. And we're back in 2012 now. Like, this is at the very beginning of social media.
Which is kind of good, right? Like, if it was today's time, do you think it'd be more hectic?
Well, kind of good, but kind of like nobody knew how to deal with social media. So I remember I got Instagram leading into the London Olympics, and it was pretty niche then. Remember, you used to use like the real heavy filters and like borders on photos.
Oh,
yeah. Images.
Some of my early Instagram work is phenomenal.
Filtered with an inch of its life.
With an inch of its life.
Yeah. So dark you can barely see what's in frame.
Yeah, I've got like sunsets and stuff too. Like, it's all pretty good.
So that was like, and I remember we were on Insta and stuff like, oh, how does this thing work? And like, how do you get followers leading into London? And then, because then we're at the Olympics, not really knowing how to use social media like we do today, like looking at messages and stuff. And I'm like getting pumped. I'm like, oh, fuck, like this is what they've... So I went from being over in China, not knowing what the hell was going on.
So then just having direct access.
To people just like having, straight access into my daily life. It was a bit of a spin out in itself, but...
And people being awful.
Oh yeah, people get pretty loose with what they say, and it's a weird thing as a swimmer, right? So because we get the swim team, not the individual swimmers, the swim team gets money off the government. Not much, a nominal amount. It might be like flights to get to the Olympics or something like that.
Yeah.
But people go, that's my taxpayer dollar, therefore I own you.
Oh, God.
It's a long bow, bro. It's a long bow.
Mate, and the amount of tax I've paid over the years, trust me, bro.
Yeah.
It's more than paid for my own way. Anyway, I've had people come up to me in nightclubs being like, put that fucking drink down. It's my taxpayer money paying for you to go to the Olympics.
Serious?
Why aren't you training? Like,
Oh
I've had
my God.
multiple
People are
sprays
so
like that.
fucking
People saying like,
stupid.
it's my taxpayer money that funds your career.
What do you say to that? You're like, fuck.
What can you say?
Well,
Yeah.
what can you say, right?
What can you say?
That
Like,
level
if
of
someone's
stupidity
that
is-
delusional to think that they're paying for my career and that I should be training at 12 a.m. on a Saturday night, it's like, mate, where do I go from there? Like, seriously. Yeah. So they're the type of people that you get just going you. And it's probably slightly different to rugby league where you're getting pumped from like opposition supporters or something. Which is, it is what it is, right?
Yes,
But
it's
when-
kind of par for the course.
But when people are pumping you from your own country who you're representing and saying that like basically they own you and like therefore they should get a say over your career and like this is how they feel about your performances, it probably hits like a little closer to home.
Yeah.
Maybe more like a what's his name? Jackson Paulo from the weekend, right? How people were pumping him like his own supporters.
Yeah.
When it comes from within, it hurts a little bit more because it feels like you're being betrayed a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind when you're trying to motivate you for a race? Like, let's use the Olympics as an example where you're representing your nation. Like, does that sort of leak into your mind where you're maybe trying to pump yourself up to represent the country, but then also you're aware that there's a percentage of the country that have it in for you?
It's weird, right? The first time you represent Australia, like you get the gold cap and you got the green swimmers. I remember the first time I represented Australia was it was the same year as the Com Games, so it was a Pan Pacific Championships first. Doesn't mean shit these days, but back in the days used to be a thing.
Yeah, Pan Pacs, Kuala Lumpur.
Pacs. Yeah,
Pan Pacs. I remember Pan Pacs as the sort of like
Pan Pacs. I don't even know if they do it anymore.
I don't even know if they do,
They
but I
might
remember
have.
the Pan Pacs in Kuala Lumpur was like
They're just
that was like Thorpe's
like the name
Yeah.
Pan Pacs reminds me
It's a
of being
cool
young.
name.
Yeah, it sounds
It
cool.
reminds me of Thorpe. And
Yeah.
you're like a young.
Just reminds me of being
Not-
young.
yeah.
I'm just like, oh, Pan Pacs.
Yeah,
I don't know what the fuck that is.
I honestly don't know if they still do it, but this was my first team and it was a big deal. And you get your gold cap. And I remember sitting in the marshalling area before I go out for my first race and I'm sort of spinning my cap around. And that's when you look at the cap and you're like, I'm not swimming for myself anymore. Now I'm representing Australia. And it has like this, gives you this boost. And I remember my first race, I was like, yep, doing it for Australia. Like, let's go. But then at that time, I was just a shit kicker. Like, no one expected anything of me. And so representing my country didn't really mean anything. But when you got 20 million people expecting you to win gold, then it's not like it spurs me on. It's like, whoa, shit. Like,
Yeah.
Wigs you out.
Yeah, it wigs you out. And particularly going into that London Olympics, it just panned out the way that we weren't expected to win many golds. I was the only guy leading into that Olympics that had won a gold at the World Championships, the only swimmer at all on the whole team. So we'd gone from like this star-studded team early 2000s to, all right, now all our hopes and dreams are in one guy, but we still have these really high hopes and dreams because we're Australia and we're good at swimming.
Yeah.
Who do we focus everything in on? And like, it was a blessing and a curse, right? Like, how many people get to say they had that moment in their lives? Like,
Yeah,
I look
yeah.
back on it and it's fucking wild, like wild, beyond your dreams. But it also was wild in that the pressure and the intensity and the scrutiny that I copped afterwards was equally outrageous. But
What can you do?
What can you do? You're there. You're
So
living it.
you said like the week after was one of the funnest times.
Yeah.
Did you not? When did the blowback start?
Oh, the blowback started straight away on pool deck. So
On pool deck.
on pool deck.
So
Yeah.
set the scene. You've just finished second by a split second.
Yeah.
If memory serves.
Yeah. 1/100th of a
a
second.
bee's dick.
A bee's dick. A
In the
bee's
old
dick.
metric.
But to me, the time that I lost by or that I got silver by has never really been a factor because it's like you live and die by the sword. I've won races by that. I lose races
Yeah.
by that. For me, I was just like I didn't get the result I wanted. And obviously like shattered, like completely shattered. And completely shattered, but also like 100 freestyles that event. So it's the same time frame as 400 meters running. So remember when you ran a 400, what you feel like at the end? It's
Hell.
like full exhaustion.
Yep.
Nothing left. Like head spinning. You're so cool.
I used to boot after them.
Yeah. So it's the exact same energy system. So you get out of the pool and you got nothing left. You're at your most vulnerable point you'll ever be at. And I remember I walked along the pool deck. I think it was Gian Rooney interviewed me. I can't even remember what was said there. And it probably wasn't the best. But then you walk off pool deck and you walk into what's called a mix zone, which is like a zigzagging, probably 200-meter walk of the world media. Just going,
200 meters.
yeah, and London was big because London media is big, right? And it's a hub. Every media outlet in the world's got a headquarters in London. And so you walk in, it's just
So this is how long after you finish the race? Like
30 seconds, a minute.
Whoa,
Yeah.
dude.
And
like
so
you
it's
don't even
full
get a
on.
second to catch
You're still in your swimmers, you're still puffing, you haven't had a chance to like absorb anything. And I'm like, right, I'm not going to speak to like any of the world media except Australia because that's kind of what we're told to do. And we've got a media manager that comes in and he leads me through past the Americans or whatever, the British, blah, blah, blah. And then there's just a mass of Australian media there. So all the media that had been sent to the Olympics for whatever sport had come on this night, right? This was the night. And so they're there and their pens are sharpened. And I walk up to the media and I'm talking like, think of all your big name rugby league journos right now that you see on TV, that you hear from regularly. They're all there front and centre.
Really?
All of the current rugby league journos.
Danny Weidler, Kenty, Buzz.
All of them.
Reedy.
All of them. And they know jack shit about swimming.
Yeah.
But you know what they're like.
Boy, Missile, why are you such a fucking loser, mate? What's going on?
Yeah, you know what they're like. And the first question I get, how does it feel to have just let down your country?
Oh!
No.
From one of, if not probably the most prominent rugby league writers right now.
No. Wow. Can you say who it is or not?
And I'll tell you off air. But yeah, you can have your guesses. Wow. And I'm just like, I'm trying to absorb what's just happened in my own head. The fact that I haven't won the race that I wanted to win. Did I feel like up until then I'd let down my country, or had I even had time to think about that? Probably not. But I remember just my heart just going like,
Dude, what a dagger to put in.
Dude, that is so brutal.
Yeah.
That's beyond. There's like such a departure from compassion to ask that question of someone who's like...
Yeah. And I spoke about it the other week on SEN. We're doing the crunch time after the Paul Green thing. And so often, and now I'm in the media world a little bit, I hear so often now from journos, they're like, oh, well, I had to ask that, you know. And sometimes it's like,
you didn't.
Did you?
No.
Like, did you have to go that angle?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many angles in any given interview.
You also still got silver.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Silver's a massive deal. You lost by a bee's dick. We've been over it. Maybe, like, you know,
that is so
how are you feeling? Are you disappointed? You know?
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Yeah.
As opposed to you let down
And
the nation.
even-
Because I give you the hot tip. You didn't. You know what I mean? It's not like the whole nation's gone, oh my God, what's he done?
Yeah.
Because
Cancel Christmas.
on the flip side, like, if you want to spin it a different way, there's plenty of silver medalists that we just can't get enough of. And when like Jane Saville, she got disqualified, comes back and wins like a bronze at like four years later. Everyone's loving it. Jane, yes, the bronze.
Yeah.
So did you respond in that? Did that like, did you feel yourself being pissed off? Is it just like,
Oh, I'm so pissed.
Yeah.
And I think my interviews reflected it. Like, I was pissed.
Yeah.
And I think I was pretty short and eventually just walked off and stopped talking. And that probably gave them even more MO than if I had have just like straight batted it. And I remember like I spoke to my manager after it and I was like, I'll never speak to that guy again for the rest of my life.
And have you?
I've spoken to him of recent because we've crossed paths. I wouldn't say we buried the hatchet. I don't even know if he remembers what he said. I don't reckon he does because he says some pretty scat stuff on a regular basis.
I'm getting some ideas of who it might be.
But I no longer hold ill feeling, put it that way. I thought I could hold a grudge for life, but I can't. And sometimes now I just kind of laugh at the sensationalism of some of the stuff he says and can take it for what it is.
Did you have to work through that shit? How long did that take to work through like all of that?
Oh,
to a point where you go like, I don't hold a grudge anymore.
Yeah,
like,
I think so for me, so the fallout for London and then the stuff that came after London. So straight off the back of London was Stilnox Gate. And that was
Stilnox
just like,
Six.
Boom.
Stilnox.
The Stilnox Six.
So where does
9.
that sit in our like timeline here? So the 4x100 meter relay was after your individual event?
No, 4x1 relay is the first event of the meet.
Oh, it's first.
Yeah.
So when is all that Stilnox stuff like broken?
Broken?
Like when's it comes out?
So the Olympics are in about August. The Stilnox stuff comes out in about January. So it takes a few months for that to leak out.
Okay.
Oh, it comes out like quite a lot.
Quite a while after. So the Stilnox incident actually occurs probably 3, maybe 4 weeks before the Olympics.
Oh, really?
Before
they
the
made
Olympics.
out like it was the night before.
So we go to a training camp in Manchester and they basically say you can go to the pool, to the hotel and back to the pool, and that is your life for the next 3-4 weeks leading into the Olympics. And you're not allowed out to, go shopping or do like anything social. Like this is our training camp. It's real serious. And it's a bit of a wig out. It's like I'm trying to be this normal person, not thinking about the fact I've got the biggest race of my life coming up, but you're just like, anyway, a couple of the older boys sit down, a couple of us younger boys and go, oi, listen, this is the go. In starting back in like the Sydney Olympics or something like this, the boys on the swim team, particularly the men's 4x100 freestyle relay, have bonded by having a night on the Stilnox. And I'm like, what on earth is Stilnox? Never heard of this in my life. They're like, mate, you take a couple of Stilnox, you stay awake, and things get weird. And I'm like, this is how it's done, mate. Yeah. And the reason being that it's Stilnox is no hangover, no effect on training, play on the next day, go to training, swim, and nobody knows any different. So I'm like, this is only my second year on the team. And I'm like, oh, the older guys are accepting me in here. Like they've asked me to come and do Stilnox with them. Like,
it's such a funny like.
This is like
they've asked me to come and do Stilnox.
Yeah. So I'm like starry-eyed. I'm like, I'm in. Yeah. Like I'm one of the boys. Even though I was like the poster boy of the whole team, it's just part of being a young guy, right? You're always searching for acceptance and trying to belong. And I'm like, oh, this is my moment. Like I belong in the team now because the older boys have asked me to come and take Stilnox. So we go and they lock us in this room and we take Stilnox and it gets a bit weird, but not that weird. Like a bit of wrestling, few prank calls. It could have got way worse.
Yeah,
and this is a story that's never actually got out there, but it's pretty funny. So I'll give you the exclusive. It could have got way worse. So we're in one of the other boys' rooms, and one of the boys goes, "Wait, let's go out. Let's go clubbing." And we're like, "Yeah, let's do it." So the guy whose room we're in, we go through his luggage and we get like fully dressed up, and we're like, "Yeah, we're going clubbing." And then at one point, someone goes, No, that's a bad idea. And then everyone must have forgotten about it. I woke up the next day in that other guy's clothes, so we were ready to go. If we hit the nightclubs in Manchester, full to the brim on Stilnox, then it could have got real heavy. Yeah. So in the grand scheme of things, you think about it, it was six guys locked in a room. I was in bed that night by, I assume, around midnight. Woke up the next day, trained. And I was like, yep, that was mad. I'm one of the boys now. They've basically initiated me into the team. Probably never
a beat up.
Yeah, never hear about it again, right? So I get back to Australia after the Olympics and I'm getting pumped for not winning gold. Like absolutely pumped. I'm like, whoa, this is hectic.
Do you have to like stay inside your house?
Yeah, there was a point there where I was feeling like really self-conscious and I was like, I don't feel very comfortable going outside because like I know people are judging me, and it was just on all like the sketchy like shows and stuff, like A Current Affair doing stories and just like, you know, I remember 60 Minutes did a story saying like, you know, the pin-up boy who gets all the stuff and sponsors. And I had a lot of sponsors and stuff at the time. So the rhetoric started being like, you know, Magnussen gets all this money and doesn't win gold. And then they started going, our Paralympians win 5 gold, but
so
Magnussen gets all the money.
Disabled people's hands.
Just whatever story they could make. I remember they did like a Gruen transfer. Oh, imagine sponsoring like Magnussen and spending all that money. Like just everyone was taking pot shots because it was the easy shot to take at the time, right?
Jeez, it got grubby.
It got grubby. And I was quite self-conscious about like, how could you not be? You know how 20-year-old guys are still trying to figure out who they are? And I'm like, whoa, I'm having this really public kind of, not downfall, but backlash. It was pretty heavy. And I remember going home for Christmas back up to Port Macquarie, and I was like, things are starting to simmer. Like people are starting to chill out, and people are like stopping. Like people, if I went to a nightclub or a bar or something, forget about it. Like I was cooked. I was just getting hassled so badly.
Really?
What were people saying?
Just basically like, I don't know, you suck or you're a loser, or people trying to fight me.
Good Lord.
Just, it was getting like real
That's
bad.
so intense, bro.
So intense, yeah. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know, and I found it really hard. Like people coming up and trying to fight me in clubs and stuff, and I found it really hard to just walk away, or like that wasn't really how I'd been taught to handle yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I was taught not to back down to a challenge type thing. And then I've got guys full to the brim coming up to me in nightclubs, half my size, telling me what they thought and saying they were going to smash me and stuff. I was like, whoa, this is like so much to handle. Anyway, I go home for Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, I've like sailed the course. I've roughed it out and I'm good. And then I go to this training camp in Caloundra. And at the time, me and the other boys in the squad were pretty into PlayStation. We were playing Call of Duty Black Ops at the time, online, training in the morning, pumping COD, training at night. We train that morning, we're pumping COD, and my manager rings me and he's like, mate, I don't know what it is, but there's a massive story about to break about you. Can you tell me what you've done? And I'm like, what? There's a massive story. He's like, mate, I don't know what it is. I've just had a tip off from a journalist. This is going to be the biggest news story in the country. And I'm like, whoa. And he's like, what have you done? And I'm like, shit. And I'm like thinking out back over my nights out. I'm like, I was like, I do not know. Like, I cannot pinpoint it. And he's like, mate, I'm warning you now, like saddle up, something big is coming.
Oh my
And I'm like,
God.
oh shit. And I'm up in Caloundra, so I'm away from my support network. Like my manager's back here, got no family or anything with me. And we go and train that afternoon. And as we're swimming, all these massive vans start pulling up outside the pool with the massive towers on them that shows live broadcast. And I'm like, oh God, like
And
what?
you still don't even know.
I don't know that it's a Stilnox thing because in my head it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like I've kind of put that to the side the next day and never thought about it again. And I don't know what it is. And by the time we finish training, they've obviously come from Brisbane, Gold Coast, everywhere up to the Sunshine Coast. There's just media everywhere just standing outside the pool. And I remember my coach like hustling me through this scrum of media to get to the car, like those feral reporters that chase you along to the car, like sticking the mic in your face.
Yeah.
And they start saying like, Stilnox, like, you know, you disrupted the team. Did you do this? Did you do that? And I'm like trying to like kind of understand what's happening, but at the same time, like get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And we drive back to the hotel and my manager rings me. He's like, mate, you're going to have to come back to Sydney. Like we got to deal with this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you got to tell me everything. Like, what did you guys do? Like they're saying basically you disrupted the whole Australian swim team, all this stuff. And I'm like, what? Like I don't. And then they're going, you're out drinking on Stilnox, Red Bull, didn't care about your results, partying before the Olympics.
God. Jesus
I'm like,
Christ.
man, this is not what happened at all. And
Does
then,
that do your head in where you're like,
oh, it
this
does
just-
my head in to this day. Like when someone asks about it, because in their head they've like this was this hectic thing that the boys got up to, and they
I'd
think
never
it must
heard
be
any-
this big
yeah.
crazy story, and it's pretty boring, really.
Yeah.
And
So
again,
no one else in the swim team didn't have anything to do with anyone else in the swim team?
nah, like a couple of prank calls,
Right, prank,
to rooms,
yeah, right.
at like 9 p.m.
Okay.
It's considerably more boring than I thought. I thought it was the night before the event.
I know. There's so many different stories, and
It's 2 weeks out from the goddamn Olympics. 3 weeks out.
yeah, and the way it panned out was, again, because I was the name at the time, they're like, boom,
this
Magnussen
guy.
did it. And I sat through, like, they put us out in a press conference. Like, I don't know if you remember it, they sat us up, all 6 of us, live on this press conference and broadcast it live on TV, where the media just went nuts asking us, like, all this stuff. And they were actually calling that, this was pre-Stephen Dank, they were saying this is the darkest day in Australian sport. And I was like,
The
what
darkest
hell?
day.
Yeah. And then, of course, because it's Stilnox, it's a prescription drug, people start saying, like, drug cheat, stuff like that. It just got real weird.
God.
And the hardest thing is, like, so I sat there quiet through all of it, right, and just took my medicine. At any given point, I could have come out and said, yeah, the older boys in the team, like, gave me, I'd never heard of Stilnox before, but I was like, that's not how I've been raised. I was like, I got to cop this.
Yeah.
And because I was the
Don't dog
name,
the boys.
because I was the name, they sent it in on me. And the older guys who suggested it, who gave us the stuff, sat there quietly as I just got, like, pumped in this press
Really?
conference.
Do you resent them for that?
At the time, I didn't even think about it. It wasn't until some stuff happened on the swim team later on and younger boys in the team were getting in a bit of trouble and stuff. And I was like, as one of the older guys on the team, you not a mentor, but you're like, hey boys, like this is how you can cope with it. This is what you can do. And I looked back on that moment for earlier in my career, and I was like, whoa, like some of those guys, I thought they were my mates. They kind of left me to hang out and dry there.
Completely dogged ya.
And so that was a bit rough. But the hardest thing, right, is going, like seeing your grandparents or something after that, and they're like, oh, we read this article in the paper that you're a drug cheat or you've been abusing drugs or something like that. And you're like, oh, like couldn't be any further from the truth. And that's not who I am or what I'm about. But how do you explain that to your grandparents? And you just feel like kind of like you've let people down. That was the main feeling. I was like, oh, I really feel like I've let my family down by having done this. But now I look back on it in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, that was nothing. Like, why did I feel ashamed of that at the time? That's nothing. I was just trying to fit in and be one of the boys. So
It's literally nothing. Like, it's such a non-event.
Yeah.
It's such a non-event.
Yeah.
And what's frustrating is that surely part of you believes this too, that the journos writing all those articles and like, you know, smashing into the earth at the fundamental level, they probably go, well, there's nothing to this.
Oh, yeah, of course.
What is that?
Yeah, but we've got to make this something to
and then,
Stilnox, whatever. Yeah. Like, I got up to far worse last night, but
and for whatever reason, we hold swimmers to a different standard. Like, if that's rugby league, like, who cares?
We don't write about it.
Like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
But swimming, they're like, all right, these guys are role models. Like, these guys are held to a different standard, so they go real hard. But the other thing was, like, I lost a bunch of sponsors and stuff, so financially it cost me a lot of money. But I was talking to a mate about the other day, and I'm like, you can't tell me the sales of Stilnox didn't go through the roof off the back of that.
Well, that was the first time I'd heard about the fact that if you did it,
really, see,
it would sort of work. I still haven't given it a go, but Sebo did. I was at his house and he thought the room was filled with snakes. And I was like, I should give this a go. Maybe we get it on.
Yeah.
Maybe we do a live stream on Stilnox.
That's what it is. It's Quaalude. Yeah. And the only reason it was banned was, remember Hacky went walking through the casino in his underpants or something, looking for his kids?
Yes.
And he was like, oh, I'm addicted to Stilnox. So they were like, oh, well, Stilnox could be addictive, so we'll ban it from the swim team off the back of that.
Right.
It's not that it's performance enhancing, that it's like none of that. Up until then, most swimmers had used Stilnox because we race heats, semis, finals. You got to sleep between them. You got to sleep in the day. Like, if you're not getting sleep during the week, it's like super hard to get through the week and race fast. So you got to have something like Stilnox to sleep at night. You race at like 9 p.m. at night. You caffeine up. You're off your head after you race. You're all up. Then you're like, I got to sleep because I got to heat the next morning. So you got to take something like Stilnox. So swimmers had always used Stilnox, not just for like the recreational purposes. So it's not really a sketchy drug at all. Like, you know, there'd be old ladies in nursing homes that take Stilnox every night to get to sleep. It's not this like crazy drug that like...
And it doesn't make you feel groggy the next day?
No. Well...
Sounds perfect.
I probably can count on one hand the number of times I've had it. And I've never had any like adverse effects. And that was the whole thing on the team. The boys are like, if you have Stilnox, not alcohol, we can have like a release in this, you know, lead up to the Olympics where we're in a hotel room all day. And we're not going to screw our performance up.
So you said earlier, like, you get caffeine, like, you know, you're all caffeined up after a race. Do you take caffeine before you race?
Yeah. So say we were racing at like, it's often like 9 or 10 p.m. at night. You'd have like 300 milligrams of caffeine before you race. So I think that's like 3 cups of coffee, I guess. Like, we'd have pre-workout late at night. And then you'd race and you just like reel up. And, you know, when you're swimming at that time of night, super bright lights, big crowd, everything's just amping you.
Are you anxious when you're on the blocks, or are you calm?
It differs. Like, sometimes anxious, sometimes like more focused than others. It just depends. Swimming's just really, you know how in football they always say like, oh, I wasn't feeling it or whatever. Like, I don't really think that's an excuse, but you never know how your body's going to be like on the day. Like, you prepare for 4 years and you're like, I have to be perfect on this day. And then sometimes you get to that day and you're like, oh, not feeling like 100% today. And that's like the that's like hard to get your head around. Even like you're on the blocks or like just something went wrong in the preparation or you got a niggling injury or something and you're like, oh, like not feeling like...
Your knuckles are bleeding. You haven't been able to get your Johnson into the pants.
And you just assume, right, when you see those guys step on the blocks at the Olympics, you're like, they must be feeling perfect. But you assume like all your preparation stuff, even a world champs or Com Games, you're like, everything prepares you for that one race a year or every couple of years to be feeling perfect when you step up on that block. But sometimes you step up on that block and just go, ooh, like
this isn't. I'm not feeling.
I'm not loving this.
Yeah, but it's part of the job and you get it done. But so that's when you feel a little bit anxious. Sometimes you're like, I don't feel 100%. Like maybe I'm not fully in control of my domain right now.
Jeez.
How were you when you got to the next Olympics? Like how far behind you was the 2012 shit show, the Stilnox stuff?
Yeah.
Like did you feel like a new swimmer, new man, or did you still sort of carry the past a bit?
Hard one. So I went on this hectic run after London where I went like 3 years without getting beaten basically.
Because you won the world champs.
Won the world champs, won the commies, was just like winning everything, swimming crazy times. And I was like, this is not my redemption story. I don't really like that word, but I was like, I'm going to right a couple of wrongs here at this next Olympics. I'm just going boom, 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 ticking off everything. And for that first year after the Olympics, I used... I don't know, like the circle the wagons mentality, like it's us against the world type thing. And that worked.
Des Hasler uses that all the time.
Des Hasler uses it.
Yeah,
it worked.
yeah.
It probably worked for like a year leading into that world champs. And then I win the world champs. I'm like, yep, back where I'm supposed to be.
Is that a big fuck you to everyone?
A bit. Yeah, a bit. And it was just, but I also needed to reconfirm in my own head, like that I was the best. Like I started to question after London. I was like, ooh, like, am I the best or did I falter there? Like did something... Looking back on it now, the race that I did in London was still a really good race and it would have won any other Olympics up until then. It would have even won the Olympics after that. But just on that day, there was someone better. And it is what it is, right? What can you do? But at the time, I started thinking like, oh, did I falter there? Or like, am I not the best? And then, so when I won that world champs, I was like, yep, right. Reconfirmed in my head, I'm the best. No, all good. We're back on track. And then just kept winning everything. And then about a year out from the Olympics, maybe a bit under, my shoulder just starts like going all like screwy. And I'm like,
are you the best in the world at this point?
Yeah. Best in the world. And haven't been beaten in like 3 years. So everyone's like, he's on track.
That must be a feeling being undefeated for 3 years.
It's a feeling, yeah. People were starting to say like white caviar and stuff like that.
Oh, the white caviar.
Dude, that's a nickname.
Dude, that's some nicknames.
That's always better than the missile, dude.
I've had a lot of nicknames over the years. I guess swimming just lends itself to nicknames,
Yeah.
right?
Are you the world forget the super suit era, which doesn't count, obviously. Are you still like the world's best time at this point?
At that point, yeah.
What is that feeling like to know that you are literally the quickest swimmer of all time?
It's a wig out. It's
like
the biggest wig
best
out
ever.
Yeah. So I always tell this story to kids when I do like clinics and stuff with kids. So when I was 16, I won the Australian champs for the first time as a 16-year-old from Port Macquarie. And I went to Wet and Wild with my mum and dad after.
Nice.
And we're at Wet and Wild and I go, Dad, Mum, how crazy is this? There's no 16-year-old kid here at Wet and Wild today that could beat me in a swimming race. Like wherever we go in Australia, there's no 16-year-old boy that could beat me in a swimming race. And Dad's like, mate, that's unbelievable. Like you've done so well.
Yeah.
And then I remember standing on the block, on the dais at the World Champs, having just won the world title. And like, I just had full flashback to this. I couldn't even picture it sitting in the car at Wet and Wild with Mum and Dad. And it's like, there's nobody in the world that could beat me in a swimming race. And to the point of, there's no one in history that could ever have beaten me in a swimming race.
That's
and
so
like,
wild.
Poor, like, it's such a wig out, hey?
Yeah.
Because you don't change as a person. You still feel like the kid from Port Macquarie that nobody knows. And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, nobody in the world in history could have beat me in a swimming race. And it's just, and that's the nature of the event, right? When you do sprint freestyle, you're the fastest swimmer. And it's a complete and utter wig out. And I still can't get my head around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you said to me, what's the proudest moment of your career? It would be that at one point I was the fastest swimmer
To have
history.
ever lived human history.
To have ever lived in human history. That is
weird, hey? That sounds
is
weird even now.
wild.
Like, it's like an out of body, like, what the, yeah.
Were your parents like, I mean, you know, not pushing it, but they, you know, like, to be really good, usually kids have parents who are like, train.
Not
What
at
was
all.
it like?
Nah, not at all. And I think that was one of my biggest benefits. So the Paul Macquarie swimming pool closed in April and opened again, I think about September, October, like all country pools.
Yep.
Too cold in winter, didn't want to pay for heating. So I'd swim in those summer months and then play rugby league in the winter months. And no pressure ever. Like Mum used to say, you wake up and, you know, have your breakfast or whatever at 4:30 and come and wake me up and then I'll drive you to the pool. And if you don't wake up, then we don't train. And I reckon, you know, across 5-6 years of training at that level in Paul Macquarie, I could count on one hand the number of times I missed training. I wanted to do it. I actually never thought I could be a professional swimmer, really.
Why were you training so hard then?
It just became part of what I did. It was just routine. You know, I get up at 4:30, I go and train, I do my thing. I did enjoy it. Like, it sounds weird, but it wasn't so much the training that I enjoyed, but I enjoyed the race. Remember when you do a swim race as a kid at the school carnival and you get up on the blocks, even if you're the shittest swimmer in the school, you get those nerves. You're like...
I went to state.
You said
young.
that you
You went
had
to state.
You
No.
talk about your distinct lack of buoyancy.
No.
And you went to state.
Because when you're a kid, everyone's the same, right? It's when you get older that buoyancy
So because
changes.
Eddie says that his family, the Simpson family, they had the men in the
men
family.
have no. I used to be
Like genetic.
I used to be an incredible breaststroker.
Well, so then when did you become the man with no buoyancy?
When you go through puberty, buoyancy was lost.
It's the pubes.
I was like
You got dense
I was
pubic hair,
swimming
dude.
champion and
Mate.
shit at our school.
You
I can
keep
tell
that
you.
shit quiet when you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
you're
yeah.
Sun
fucking...
Yang still
Because it's
floated
not
and he
as
was
funny.
cubed up.
It's not as funny. You got to lean into the
Yeah,
buoyancy.
no,
Okay.
they do say that. You know what you should have done? So they do float tests for swimmers. And if you float, you're a distance swimmer. If you sink, you're a sprinter. Because you got that higher muscle density.
What if you're literally like below the waterline and you could be mistaken for a rock?
You're probably a runner.
Driftwood.
Probably a runner. There we go.
Probably a runner.
Yeah, a bit of
Track
driftwood.
cyclist.
Yeah.
Track cyclist.
Oh, no, I just wanted to know about with training, right? Because, like,
Yeah.
swimming, you just sort of like... It's not like I want to know your schedule, but it's so much time just by yourself
Sort of do
underwater,
want to know it,
looking at
though.
a black line. Like,
Yeah.
seems like it's quite a solitary pursuit in that sense.
Yeah. It's funny. You know what you get addicted to? It's the feeling in the water. And I didn't realize it until we did the lockdown recently. And I was living in Drummoyne, so I didn't have any pools or anything within 5K or the ocean. So when we did that stupid ass 5K radius thing,
Yeah.
I couldn't swim for like, what were we, like 3-4 months?
Yeah, it was a while.
Yeah, and I've moved now to North Bondi because I was like, I have to be near the water at all costs because that was really etched for my mental state.
So you still swim all the time?
I still swim, but if not like laps, get in the water, feel the water. But when you're swimming well and when you're swimming like you're as one with the water, you would say whatever, that the feeling of that is like addictive. Like when you're in that zone and you're flowing, I imagine it's what it feels like for a runner, like a really good runner when they got that
Cadence, we call that in the
Runner's
running
high.
game.
cadence.
Runner's high.
Yeah, when they got that cadence and time just like elapses, everything flows, and
Speaking to a couple of runners.
it's a really amazing
One of
feeling.
those.
Which one?
It's for you
We'll let
to
you
decide.
decide.
I reckon that's what you get addicted to, along with the racing. So like I said,
Yeah.
when you're a kid and you get those nerves on the blocks before you do a race, it's different to other sports. I don't know why. You know, when you play footy, you get nervous. But when you're at the start of the race, waiting for that gun to go off, it's like a different nerves.
Yeah, well, I guess like with footy as well, once it starts, like
You
the
work
nerves
into
just
it.
disappear. And it's
Yeah.
just sort of all there and it sort of goes.
Yeah.
Like you're not nervous for kick off of the second half. You know what I mean? But like with, I remember my swimming days, Eddie, and now that I know you were a fucking state champion or whatever, I
Who would
assume
be
that
better now?
Bro, we did training with Bronte Blue. He's not an ad, but check him out on Instagram.
Yeah.
He trains us and he's helping us for the marathon.
Yeah.
And as punishment, because I ate pizza 6 days in a row, he made us swim. You know Clavelli?
Yeah.
We had to swim like halfway out to the center of Clavelli and back, and it was sort of choppy. And I almost thought
From
he
the
was
beach
dead.
or from the...
from just like from the wall.
It was like 15,
that's not very
That's
far.
not that far, dude. It's
No.
not that far.
No, it's a far.
And we had to jump in and swim out and back 6 times.
Yeah.
And I had to like constantly look back to check that Eddie was still with us because he was like,
Because there was a chance
Was
I'd
there swell?
slip below the fucking...
yeah, but
there
like
was swell.
It was fine,
swell.
dude. It was fine.
There was swell for this country boy. It was
yeah.
too much swell for me,
He
bro.
was struggling
All
so
freestyle, or did you resort
He-
to breaststroke?
within half a lap.
Dude, I
Within
go back to what I was good at, breaststroke, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
dude,
We in the swimming world, we call breaststrokers people that hang around swimmers.
yeah.
That's
Is that, so it's,
That's exactly what he is.
It's frowned upon.
they're like the Magoos of the swimming world. Yeah.
I believe that. It's a weird stroke to do, dude.
Do you,
Yeah.
It's not cool looking.
Well, let's say you break the world record for breaststroke. Like, what's your thing then? Like, I was the fastest to doggy
frog,
paddle
frog
ever.
swim through
yeah,
a water.
it's not
Shout out
it's
to
not
Zach
too far.
Stubblety
Out.
Cook.
Probably the only weirder thing's doing backstroke, right? Like, what other sport do you swim backwards?
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at the
No
ceiling
one's
you hold?
sprinting backwards.
Look, if you're looking to cull a couple of Olympic events, I think breaststroke and backstroke are on the chopping block.
Yeah.
in
I
a big
think so.
way.
In a big way. Probably
it's
medley as well.
It's
Medley's
just-
a bit weird.
Yeah, like I'm not really good at any of the strokes. Whack them all together, I'm all right.
It was just an excuse for Phelps to win more gold, really.
Yeah.
In what? Did he win in backstroke?
He won the medals.
No, he went in
Oh, in
medleys.
medley. Sorry,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, he won medleys.
Tell me the thinking behind getting up as early as possible to train for swimming. Like, surely you can get to the pool at 7:30.
Yeah, I know.
Why do you have to get there at 3:34?
Yeah, it's dumb. I think it's all about like commitment, dedication, all those kind of like swimming's old school, real old school.
Right.
Like you see the rugby league coaches that are old school, like your Wayne Bennett's, I guess a bit like your Des Haslers. They're like ingrained in swimming. Like that's the
Right.
norm in swimming. Like we got to be old school. I was telling this story today actually with Fossey on radio. So there's this story about Laurie Lawrence. You remember the Kids Alive do the
Five.
Laurie Lawrence. So he's coached Duncan Armstrong back in the day when he won that 200 freestyle at the Olympics. This is real swimming history shit.
Yes.
And Laurie Lawrence is coaching this group of swimmers. And one of the guys goes, I'm done. Like, I'm in too much pain. I couldn't possibly continue. Like, this is just too painful. Laurie Lawrence walks over to a brick wall and rubs his knuckles up and down the brick wall until they're bleeding and comes back and goes, that's what pain looks like. Now keep swimming. That's
Laurie Lawrence.
Laurie Lawrence.
Jeez, he's a little bit darker than the Kids Alive Do the 5 version.
That's...
Oh
Lucky he didn't do that. The Kids Alive do the 5, bro. Holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah, probably wouldn't have resonated with the toddlers.
No way, bro.
But yeah,
That is old school.
swimming is old school. Like they expect you to be like regimented, like hardcore, up early, like super dedicated to the sport. And look, after swimming, you're like, you try and assimilate into the real world. And you're like, oh shit, like people aren't that zoned in general life. But as a swimmer, you're like so much tunnel vision. You
Yeah.
don't know what the world's about.
Is that a... Well, we can get back to Rue, but like, is that a weird transition then when you did retire? To try and be like...
transitioning was really tough from swimming. I think swimming, and again, it was probably a product of my career and stuff, but I was surrounded by people when I swam that was like, when you retire, we'll do this for you, we'll do that, you'll get a job here, you'll be the face of this, face of that. And then I retired, and you have a bit of downtime, like a couple of months or whatever, and then I'm like, all right, like, let's do some of this stuff. And people are like, no, like that wasn't actually a thing. Like people disappear, and you're like, oh, so you just wanted me to come to like your events and your dinners and meet your mates, and you didn't actually have any opportunities.
tire kickers.
Yeah, and you, I think you get a lot of that in individual sports, and you don't have a club there to support you. There is no, head of well-being at the football club who sort of eases you into retirement or gives you opportunities for further work or study. It's just like boom, all right, today I don't have to get up at 4:30. What does the rest of my life look like? And it's pretty jarring.
Yeah. Well, so what do you do then after that initial period where people have all dogged you?
Yeah, mine was weird. Like I hit up a lot of these people and they all went missing, to the point where I actually did a 6-week internship at a company who said they were going to have this opportunity for me. They're like, yep, come in, do this 6-week internship. We'll have a job for you at the end of it. The internship's unpaid, but, come in, get used to coming into the city, wearing a suit, doing your thing. I was like, yep, sweet. Like I could do a corporate job. How hard could that be?
Mr. Wong's
So, there was a few Mr. Wongs. So I suit up every day and they roll me out at a couple of lunches like, we got the missile here. Can you just... bit of a motivational chat at lunch for the staff. Yeah, all right. Oh, we got this big deal we're doing. We'll bring you along to it. Just sit in on it. Don't need to say anything. Just sit in. And so they'll roll me out.
Can you wear your fucking swim cap?
Would you have your medals on?
They were just rolling me out at a few things. And then I was like, I wasn't loving it, but I was working away pretty hard at it and trying to assimilate into the workplace and just be normal. And I was like, yep, I'll do an office job. I just thought
faith, just having a crack.
I just thought that's what I had to do. I had this stupid thing in my mind where I was like, I can't be the swimmer anymore. I have to be like this corporate guy and just fit in and be normal.
Yeah.
And it gets to the end of 6 weeks. They're like, mate, thanks so much for that. Like, sorry, no job opportunity, but really appreciated having you. Like, if you want to come back into the office and use this as a bit of a landing place for other opportunities, feel free.
Oh my god! Just hang out. So we can. Fuck?
You want me to suit up and come into the city and sit in your goddamn office just so people can look at me or some shit? Like, what are we talking? Like, that's...
Dude, that would have been so sad if you did that.
Oh man! And I sat there and I noticed a couple of times in my time there, like, a couple of the higher ups had just a little bit of like a few little pot shots and stuff around stuff like, oh, you're not at the swimming pool now, like a couple of little tall poppy things.
Right.
And I was saying to my girlfriend at the time, I was like, this corporate thing, I was like, I don't know about it. Like, I'm working pretty hard. I'm doing my best, but I don't know about this whole corporate thing. I don't know if this is my go. And so I pretty much got over that. And at the end of that opportunity, I was like, right, nothing's going to be put on a plate for me. People can say what they want to say, and I'm not going to one more lunch, one more event. I'm none of that bullshit anymore, because that's what it is. It's all bullshit. People have promised you the world, and no one's delivering. I was like, I've got to go out there and make my own way. And from there, I went out and did my own thing.
So what did you do?
So now I've got my own gym.
Yep.
I just opened. I own a gym equipment company that supplies to commercial gyms and home gyms, which went crazy during COVID because obviously everyone wanted a home gym.
Yeah.
I run swim clinics.
Did you start that before COVID and then COVID
just
hit
before the first COVID? Yeah.
Lucky.
So right
what
at
a
the very
great
start.
fucking time to get into that racket.
It was good timing. And like, I was learning about business on the fly a bit. Until you've started your own business, you don't really know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Then I run swim clinics for swim clubs. I'm particularly in country areas. On weekends, I feel pretty passionate about giving back to the country and kind of teaching them things that...
bush swimmers.
Bush swimmers. Yeah, I love bush swimmers.
You ever get out to Dubbo, mate?
Haven't been to Dubbo, but I've been to like Forbes, Bathurst, Cowra.
Barrel pool?
Yeah, barrel pool.
Pool?
Mittagong pool. I used to do water polo.
I went to Frensham at Barrel.
Oh, yeah. There you go. That's my sister went to Frensham.
Yeah.
Good pool out there.
That was a good pool.
Yeah, good pool.
It was crazy. They had like these beautiful grounds, massive school, and they said they only had like 300 students or something.
Yeah, not
it's
many.
Real small.
Yeah.
It's one of the
300
nicest.
total?
Yeah.
Here's
Might
not
have
a
even
heap.
been less. It was one of the nicest schools, massive grounds, tennis courts, hockey fields. And I went on the Saturday morning, and there's girls playing sports on netball courts. So I'm like, oh, this is the bee's knees.
Yeah.
And the swim coach was like, yeah, it's surprising there's only 300 students, hey.
One of the dude in like a couple of years below me at school, Frensham, just got like a state-of-the-art hockey field, like one of those ones that was like AstroTurf or I think in like really good like drainage on it and shit. And he went and lit a tennis ball on fire and fucking smacked it into the middle of the thing and ruined the entire field. I just remember that. I didn't like, he wasn't a mate. I just remember being like, oh, that kid set the Frensham hockey field on fire.
Yeah.
Shout out
Just want to see the world burn.
Yeah,
Sounds a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically just like did all that stuff myself. I was like, do your own thing. Like, So doing that. And I'm working at the moment on a couple of learn to swim schools, like bricks and mortar learn to swim schools. And do the SEN stuff, write for News Corp.
Swimming related.
Behind enemy lines.
Yeah, big time. Gone in there.
Yeah. Commies was really interesting. Like I was getting asked to write some articles about some of the stuff that was going on, obviously.
I wanted to know about this.
Yeah.
Love triangles.
Given what you went through, how did you approach the love triangle fiasco?
Yeah, so I was speaking to Kyle all the way through.
Is he a friend of yours or just
yeah. I mean,
fellow swimmer?
We're not super close, but I'd say he's a friend. And also knowing what I've been through, like I'd like to kind of help out where I can and just give a little bit of a pep up where possible, if particularly in that case where he was going through a tough time. But I was in like this weird position where I was supposed to be writing about Cody and Kyle and Emma. And I'm only a couple of years, I'm 4 years retired now, but I also know them personally. And I also know what's going on, and like it's weird.
Swimming always has, and rightly or wrongly, it always has some pretty juicy fucking love triangles. Like there's been love triangles in the past, is there?
Yeah,
not?
there's been
Sullivan
breakups.
and Steph Rice
and
were in there.
Yeah, Steph and Eamon. There was Emily Seabohm and Mitch Larkin, and they were on like Better Homes and Gardens or something.
Yes.
And then he played up on her or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
There's always
That
some
got
juicy
messy.
stuff.
But like you add this one, like it or not, was the most juicy because
It's
you
a big
have
one.
Cody fucking Walker.
Simpson.
Simpson.
Jesus. I apologize. Every time.
Over here, buddy.
Yeah.
Cody Simpson into it. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
add the bit of that Bieber fever in
you
there.
put some Bieber fever in there, some baby.
That's not a song, but like
It's next level. Yeah, it's
you put
next
that
level.
shit in there.
Well, what it does is, so I had to write about it from a sports perspective, but you throw in a Cody Simpson, and suddenly you got the gossip journos.
Yeah.
Like
got
right
some Daily
into
Mail
it.
about
It's got some Daily Mail. It's got some BuzzFeed or those
Yeah.
who will grab a headline at whatever cost. So
Plenty of tabloid about it.
yeah. Which you know what, and Swimming Australia will realise this in hindsight, and the swimmers involved will realise this in hindsight. It's all positive for swimming.
it's good for business.
All good for business. And that was what I was trying to write. Like, regardless of what you think about this, and it's something I said to Kyle as well. Like, let's say Cody Simpson brings an extra worldwide million eyeballs to it. That's a million people who before that didn't have any idea who Kyle Chalmers was. They'd never heard of him. Now, whether they love him, hate him,
Indifferent.
don't care, they know when they hear the name Kyle Chalmers, they're like, oh yeah, that's that swimmer. So regardless of how it felt at the time, and it always feels like a storm at the time, and it's all consuming. But when you sit back and look at the bigger picture, it's actually a positive because there's now another million people out there who know who Kyle Chalmers is. And he went on to win his race. So they're like, oh, Kyle Chalmers is a mad dog. He's
He's the real
100
deal.
freestyle champion.
Yeah.
What did you, is this just, does it sort of give you a bit of PTSD? Like, is it just a media beat up and you sort of see similarities between this time and last time? Or do you?
Is there a bit more to it?
A little bit. I think maybe people like journos have called it on swimming a little bit since then. Like, it's sad. Like, I don't think swimming gets the headlines it does anymore, right? Like, which was
Probably fair.
Yeah.
yeah, a good and a bad thing at the time. Like, in some ways, I was probably like last of an era. Like, I was the back end of Thorpe, Hackett,
Susie O'Neill.
Susie, even Steph Rice was still around when I first came through. Liesel.
Liesl Jones.
Libby.
Libby Trickett.
Yeah.
Yeah, Libby. Libby was a big name. Yeah.
Nee Lenton.
Knee length.
Yeah, I kind of remember her more as Libby Lenton. Hey?
Yeah.
It's got more of a...
I'm a Trickett.
I'm
You're a Trickett.
I'm a Lenton.
I'm a
Trickett.
Lenton.
Look, I'm probably Lenton, but I'm also Trickett.
Yeah.
And then you've got Yana Pittman, Rawlinson Pittman. Not a swimmer, but
Not a swimmer.
not a swimmer, but she
worth
was
repeating.
Pittman, then Rawlinson, then back to Pittman.
Then back to Pittman.
What is she now?
I think she's back to Pittman.
She's Pittman.
She was Pittman, Rawlinson, and then back to Pittman.
Yeah. I did... she was meant to be on the first season of SAS. And
Wanted to ask you about
she pulled out because she got pregnant. But I was
cool.
over there with her for that. She She was in great shape.
So wait, she was over there about to do it, and then was like, "Oh, pregnant."
Yeah. So
shit.
we're in New Zealand about to start filming, and it ends up getting cancelled because of COVID, and we get sent home. But basically, the day we are about to start filming, it gets cancelled. But 2 days before that, they're like, "All right, we're like, sorry about this, but we got to do a pregnancy test for all the women. It's just part of what we have to do."
It makes sense. I wouldn't have thought of that.
And all the women are like,
Neither.
Yeah, all the women are like, "Oh, come on, like, you know, we're on contraceptive or this, that, the other." Like, none of them are trying for babies. None of them, and they do the test, and Yana is pregnant. She has no idea. Wasn't trying. Like, had no plans. And we're like, whoa. Like, she came and because I've known her for a long time through just being on teams and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, and I was talking to her before the show. I was like, "I reckon you're going to make it to the end. Like, you're going to." I'd seen her and I was like, "You're in like competing shape. You're a beast." And she's like, "Yeah, I've worked really hard, blah, blah." She came and saw me before we started filming and she's like, I'm off the show. I was like, "What?" She's like, "I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh my God, did you know? Were you planning?" She's like, "Nah, nothing." Like,
What a spin out.
Yeah.
Because she came back to later episodes and did pretty well.
so she had the baby and came back like a year later on the second season, but wasn't in the same shape that she was for the first one because she came back so quick after the baby.
Yeah.
Oh, so she wasn't in this. Oh, so she was in better shape the first time.
Oh,
She was in
yeah.
pretty good nick the second time.
Nah.
Yeah, but
First
after
time
a
she
kid's
was.
going to be a little.
You know what a clean is in the gym? Like where
Yeah.
you, from the floor up to your shoulders.
Don't disrespect us, James. We know
Yeah.
what clean is.
So she was cleaning 90
That's
kilos.
the clean and the clean and jerk.
Yeah, the clean without the jerk.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she was
Not to
cleaning.
be mistaken for the snatch.
We couldn't mistake it for the snatch.
Not to be mistaken. She was cleaning 90 kilos to her shoulders in the gym before we went in.
Wow.
And that's like a solid weight for anybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I'd seen her in her running career, I'd seen her in her bobsled career. Remember she did bobsled?
Oh, fuck yeah.
So she was training at N-Swiss for that as well. So I'd seen her throughout these stages of her career, and I was like, "You are in like shape.
Come back,
Like,
Nick."
Yeah. I was like, "You're going all the way." And she was like, "Look, yeah, I've trained really hard. We'll see how we go." And I was like, "No, you're going all the way." And then when she came back the second time post baby, obviously
same.
couldn't do the same training.
Yeah. How much time are you given to prepare for it?
Before we went to New Zealand, we were given about 8 weeks, I want to say. And I was in like pretty good shape before the New Zealand one. And then it gets cancelled. We come back and we're in lockdown. And they're like, we're going to go ahead with the show. And this was in March. We're going to go ahead with the show. We're going to film it in up near Thredbo in August. And so we get back in March and I'm like, right, we're filming in August. So I just went like nuts training and was in some of the best shape of my life by the time we got to filming it in Thredbo.
How was that experience, that show? Is it as brutal as it looks?
Yeah, it's wild. Like I lost 11 kilos in 14 days.
Is that how long the whole thing goes for?
14 days.
Shit.
It looks longer on TV.
Oh, mate, it looks like I watched
Yeah.
this.
It
looks
I didn't
months.
watch your season. I watched the second one, and it looks like it goes for like a month.
Yeah.
6 weeks even.
So
You wanna watch-
does that make
so-
it easy to get into it? Where you're like, it's only 14 days. Like, push
No,
through.
it doesn't, because the reason being, like, you get to day 3, and you know when you're on holidays, it was always 2 weeks holidays as a kid because it's in the, and you're on holidays and you're like, oh, 2 weeks holidays, it goes so fast. I remember in the show, I was like 2 weeks. I was like, I'm 3 days in. Got 11 days of this bullshit left to go. And like, we weren't sleeping, we weren't eating. It was just absolute torture. If you haven't seen the first season, it's worth going back because
Was this one you were in?
yeah.
First season is yours,
So
yeah.
the first season, like the producers basically said for the second season, they're like, there's a lot of stuff you guys went through that basically doesn't come across on camera. So like, we filmed up near Thredbo in August. So it was like -degrees
Freezing.
temperature. We're just freezing, shivering the whole time. We're always wet. We're not sleeping.
Fuck that.
The last part of the show they did for ours was torture. So they tortured, like literally tortured us. Like chained us up in a room by our hands to the ceiling, put noise cancelling headphones with screaming babies and squealing pigs, scratching down chalkboards and stuff, blindfolded us and left us there for 8 hours.
Oh,
8 hours. And every now and then they'd like rip the blindfold off and there'd be a German shepherd like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," like right in your face. And then you'd be like, and then they'd pull the blindfold down again. And then they take it off or something, and these guys would just throw you to the ground and like rough you up heaps bad, and then chain you up again. And and they're like that didn't come across that well on TV. Like we couldn't show some of that stuff. So we're gonna
I'm not surprised.
we're gonna cut that. We're gonna cut that stuff off the future seasons. So when I watched the second season, I was like, mate, no torture. This is walk in the park. They didn't chain these bastards up.
How'd you end up on the show? You almost
you had like one of the most brutal fucking exits
so
ever.
I got to the end. So basically they say to us, and the betting markets were the same. It's like, get to the end of the show and don't quit. So the only way you get off the show is like, take off your number and say, I quit. And so I was just like, I'm not going to quit. Like, nothing will make me quit. And as bad as it got, I was like, I know my mates are watching and I'm not quitting in front of these bastards. Like, all they want is to see me hand in my number. And we even, like, if we have a bender or something now and someone goes to bed early, that we're like, give us your number. Voluntary withdrawal. Who's the first one to hand in your number? So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to quit. Whatever. Get to day 14. Last thing, like, got this like hectic thing where we're carrying people on our shoulders and stuff. Sprint to the top of this hill, and there's a helicopter waiting at the end. I sprint to the top of the hill, first one there. They're like, congratulations, the show is over. Like, you've made it to the end. Then I'm like, oh, like, biggest relief ever. Like, thank God. Then they're like, you've made it to the end of the show, but not everyone has been selected. I was like, what does that mean? Like, selected? And they're like, only 3 of you have passed selection for the SAS.
And who was it with you at that point, the final?
Honey Badger, Sabrina, the girl that boxed Honey Badger, and Merrick Watts. So I'm sitting, and they're like, we make this choice based on who we'd want next to us in the trenches, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going, sweet. I'm home. Like, do you want me or do you want Merrick next to you in the trenches? You want me to carry you back to that next trench or you want Merrick? And Merrick's a lovely guy. I love Merrick. I've stayed in contact with him after the show. But I'm thinking him, and Merrick's 47 years old. Yeah. Super impressed that Merrick's got to the end, but he's not excelled.
He's also 47 years old.
Just the fact that he made it, I'm like, whoa. Like, I thought Merrick would be going day 2. He's a weapon. Anyway, they say what they say, and I'm like, all right. And they go, not everyone's passed selection. And they go, I think it was maybe Merrick first or something. They're like, you've passed, congratulations, you've passed selection. I was like, oh, fair enough. And then they go to me, they go, number 12, you haven't passed selection. And I was like, what? And you know, the only thing was, and the show was so real, so hardcore, didn't feed us, didn't sleep, like, tortured us. I was like, this feels like the real selection course. Like, this was so real. And then we got to that end bit and I was like, oh, bullshit. Yeah. Like, you made it so real and then you stood me there next to Merrick and these other guys and that's when you turned it into a reality TV show. Yeah. Like, you waited till then. Like, I bought into this so hardcore. I gave you
Was it like almost made it? Like you're trying to play on the nearly made it, nearly won the gold.
I don't know. And the funny thing was, so all the betting agencies had done markets on who's going to get to the end. And at the start of the show, I think I was paying $6. My mates are like, you're paying $6. I'm like, do with that what you will. Knowing that I hadn't been selected, but the market said who will make it to the last episode. And so all my mates load up on me at $6 and they all get paid out. Because nobody knew that there was like making it
and then finishing
and getting selected. And the shittest thing is kind of funny though. And I'm there by the end. I'm like completely empty. I've lost 11 kilos, haven't slept, haven't eaten. I'm just like, thank God it's over. Like, whatever. I haven't been selected. It wasn't my dream to be an SAS soldier. They're like, all right, you 3, you've been selected. Let's get in a helicopter and leave the set. And the 3 of them get in the helicopter with the 4 British dudes and they're like, poof, 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 poof. And they're leaving in the distance and I'm left standing there on the hill on my own like, where's the rest of the production team? What now? I remember.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. It was so shit. And I've just done 14 days with these idiots and I'm like, oh, that's brutal. And then I remember this chick from the team walks out and she goes, she's got a pack of Tim Tams. She's like, would you like a Tim Tam? I'm like, yeah, give me a fucking Tim Tam. But the best thing was and a few people said to me after, they're like, like, well, you shattered, you didn't get to the end or get the prize money or whatever. But you're paid per day. So when I got to that last day, I'd already been paid. There was no prize money or anything. So I was like, whatever. If there was like $100,000 on the line, I would have been like, boom, this is bullshit. Yeah. Tracy Grimshaw.
Yeah. I've been completely ripped off.
But
did you say anything? Were you like, oh, what the fuck?
Well, you know the funny thing. So the British guys, so basically they run it all as one shot. So they're like, sorry, you didn't make it, blah, blah, blah. They're like, we just felt they said, we felt like you didn't show enough emotion. And I was like, all right. Like this whole time, you could have got me to cry on day 3 if you wanted to. I was putting on the brave act. Because I'm surrounded by SAS soldiers and I think you want to see a hardcore dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, they're torturing me and I'm not flinching. Because I'm assuming you don't want me to flinch.
You want someone who's
and then I get to the end and they go, you didn't show enough emotion. That's a weakness. And I was like, well, all right, whatever. And my girlfriend ribbed me about it because she always says I'm not a very emotional guy.
Well, look,
she's like,
come back to bite you, mate.
She's like, you know you're fucked when 4 SAS soldiers say you're not emotional.
Two of the hardest dudes on the planet are like,
soften
up a little bit.
Yeah. So they shoot that all in one shot. They get in their helicopter. They're gone. And I didn't see those British guys for like another 2 years. Like
that was it.
That was it.
You never saw them again.
So
I don't know where the fuck they went. They must have gone back to a base camp or something and flown back to England. I get back to these like little huts and stuff, and they're feeding me Tim Tams and stuff. They take us to this resort in Jindabyne, sleep the night, and Merrick and I drive back to Sydney. I never saw those British guys for another 2 years. Nobody said to me like, oh, look, it's just like, this is why we didn't select you or whatever.
You're just sitting there being
like it. And I didn't see the rest of the cast. So we were mid-COVID at that point. So the rest of the cast, as they quit, they just went home. So like, for example, Roxy Jasenko quits 2 hours into the show. Haven't seen her since. Like, it's so weird. We went through this thing together. We went through this like monumental thing in our life and just never saw them again. And it was so like, it didn't have a reunion.
So weird.
It was so weird. And then 2 years later, I bumped a couple of the British SAS guys. So they were in Sydney after just having filmed, I think, the Sam Burgess season. And I caught up with them for dinner. And not Ant, the little guy with the beard, not the main guy. He does his own thing. He doesn't let down his guard the whole time. But these other guys...
Oh, really?
He never lets down his
bravado of like...
Yeah, it's his thing. It's his brand. Whereas the other guys, like, when you're not on camera, you can be like, have a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But Ant is like, boom.
Yeah.
He's on. He's like Hollywood. He's full Hollywood.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Is he a big day? Like, is it sort of a bit much?
It's a bit much.
Yeah.
Day 1, you're like, he's on the SAS. Day 6, you're like, I want to knock you out.
Yeah.
And by day 12, you're like, I might just try this.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, so they never really explained it to me. And then like I caught up with the guys a couple of years later and they're just like, whatever, like is what it is. Like, and I was like, I get it, but like,
I also...
bit shit.
Yeah. It
Like,
isn't just what
You
it
did
is.
leave me on a hill as you flew away.
And offered me a fucking
Can you
Tim Tam.
imagine that as they pan out and like one lonely beanstalk is standing on this hill, like head down, and the helicopter flies out, and Merrick's hanging out of the helicopter going,
Yeah. I remember seeing that final episode and being like, holy shit, that was brutal. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, when I was making notes, I was like, SAS, brutal ending. Like, it was like particularly fucked the way they did that.
You know how the British guys explained it to me. So they've done multiple seasons in Britain, in England. And each time they pretty much get everyone bar one person quits. And they're like, towards the end of this show, they're like, we're ramping this up hardcore and no one's quitting. And they're like, last day, we're pumping you guys. We get to the top of the hill and still no one's quit. And I was like, well, why wouldn't you just make it go a bit longer and make Merrick quit or make Sabrina quit? Like Honey Badger and I are still doing our thing. Merrick's hanging on by the skin of his teeth. Like he's made it, but he's like dragging his ass up that last hill. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just? And they're like, mate, everyone's got a storyline. Like you all got to the end. Nobody quit. So basically, we line you guys up at the end and we go, all right, this and basically like what's going to be an ending to this show that'll grab some headlines.
Yeah.
Let's bury the missile.
By leaving the missile on the mountain.
The white caviar. We're going to leave him on the fucking top
and if
of
they
mountain.
like say they leave Merrick, right? Everyone's like, oh well, he did well. He's 47. Like he wouldn't probably be in the SAS anyway. So like, what's your storyline? If you leave the biggest, one of the fittest guys there, and then people are like, oof, like, is that real? Like, is that legit? Like, there's something going on behind cameras. Is Missile actually, a lunatic? Like,
Was Merrick giving you shit on the way home?
Nah, Merrick's a legend. He's like, he gives ribbings during the show, but he actually was like really cool about it. He's like, mate, I'd have you next to me in the trenches. So thanks, Merrick.
Thanks, Merrick.
I wouldn't have you. No, he's a legend. And he bought into it so hardcore, and he's kind of like full into army stuff. Like he's gone over to the Middle East and done charity stuff for SAS and stuff. So going into it, I knew how like balls deep he was in this army stuff. So I was like, I hope Merrick does well. Didn't think he would, but hoped he did.
It's surprising.
He got knocked out by Mitch Johnson in the boxing.
Oh,
Who did you fight?
I fought Eden. He was off Love Island. Big, tan, tatted up
Eden
guy.
off
He was
Love
He was
Island.
like the bully off the first season of Love Island. I think he
Doesn't
got to
ring
the
a
end and there
bell.
was all these articles coming out.
Yeah.
He's like,
he was he with the blonde with the blonde chick on Love Island?
Yeah.
This is exactly how a conversation about Love Island goes, where it's like Eden with the blonde chick, the chick that like I have no fucking.
That's it.
Did you beat Eden?
it was, so Eden is a correctional officer.
Oh, shit.
So works at a jail, so does fighting stuff. So it was a real good fight. But he started tiring towards the end, so I felt like I was getting the better at the end. And then they stop. If they had gone, like they stop it towards the end, and I was like, oh, that was going pretty well. But at the start, we were like trading blows. Like both of us were bloodied up. Like it was a proper fight.
So how long do you have to fight him for?
I don't know, probably 2 minutes, minute and a half, 2 minutes.
It's long enough.
Fucking oath.
Long enough.
And you know what they did before we went out? So in the lead up, right? So Shannon Ponton's on the show, Biggest Loser coach.
The commando, or is that
The other guy.
Oh,
So it used to be
yeah.
Michelle and Shannon. And before we go on the show, I meet Shannon, and he's like, come and do a couple of training sessions. I'm like, yep, sweet. He's like, you done much boxing? I was like, oh, not really, like the average amount. And he's like, well, we're going to have to fight in the show. Do you want to come over to my house and we'll practice some boxing? I'm like, yeah, all right. So I drive up to North Curl, go to Shannon's house. He whips out some gloves for me, gloves for him. And he's like, chuck on the gloves and we'll do a bit of sparring. And I'm like, here? And he's like, yeah, on the driveway. I'm like, all right. Like, no mouth guards, no headgears. I'm like, all right, so what's the go? Like body shots? He's like, no, headshots. I'm like, oh, all right. And so me and Shannon on the front driveway of his house in Curl start punching on. And as is the case in any time you're boxing, first jab is like, yeah, all right, feel it out. And then he like cracks me in the nose. I'm like, oh, fucking.
You're right, Shannon.
So then you start throwing back with a bit of a gusto. And like mothers are walking down the hill with their kids from school, walking past his house. And me and Shannon Nola standing on the front driveway punching on with each other. And it's like, it was full on.
Dude, that's so good.
Anyway, so Shannon's teaching me. He's like, throw straight, do this, do that. This is the technique. Head movement. I'm like, yep. So we punch on a few times on his driveway, and I'm feeling good about. I'm going to the show. I'm feeling. Even one day, Shannon brings over one of his mates who's a bit bigger, and he's like, all right, you're going to punch on with this guy today, because on the show they'll probably give you a bigger guy. I remember the first time.
Why was he so invested in you? Fucking.
So he used to be the first time. I'm like, shit. Shannon Ponton just towed me
You
up.
kept saying
man.
Noel, and I'm like, where am I now?
I knew it wasn't Noel, but
Shannon
I was
Ponton.
like, fuck it, I'll let it go.
I was like, Shannon Ponton like kind of towed me up then. I go home and search it, and he's had like professional fights. He was a boxer.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right. Anyway, so one of the days he brings over a bigger mate, and he's like, you're probably going to have to fight someone bigger on the show, so you punch on with this guy today. I'm like, all right. Anyway, my first time I came home from it, I get home and my missus is like, you look a bit rattled. Like, what's going on for you? Your face is a bit red. It's like, I think I just had a fight. She's like, who with? I was like, Shannon Ponton. She's like, why'd you fight Shannon Ponton? I was like, oh, we're just boxing on his driveway.
Preparing for SAS.
Headgears, mouth guards, none of that. Oh, body shots, nah. Just punching each other in the head.
That's hilarious. But so he just did you know him beforehand? He's like, oh,
Nah,
let's go on a show.
but we're good mates now. Keep in contact all the time.
He seems like
That's how you become quickly friends.
yeah,
fast friends.
absolute
Fast
legend
friends,
of a
that's
bloke.
right.
And they paired us up on the show towards the end, and like we had to help each other out and stuff. So it was mad. But he teaches me all these techniques. And then, so we put the gloves on the show, and I'm thinking in my head, like, head movement, straights, not hooks. And then little Ant grabs me by the headgear and pulls me down, and he's like, listen here, you bastard, you big bastard. They were calling me a tall C the whole show. Like, that's all they were calling me, or you big C the whole show. And he's like, you listen here. He's like, this is a war zone. No blocking, no backward step. You swing, you move forward, you try to kill. And he's just screaming at me. And it just gets you in the moment. And I'm just like, whoa, I'm going for a TV KO here.
Primetime KO.
100% primetime KO, baby.
And so then they walk us out, and I'm like, ah. And I can see Eden across the other side. He's a big unit as well. And you can see he's just foaming at the bit. He's like, oh. I'm like, here we go, like ding, ding. And we just walk out. And it wasn't a backward step the whole time. We just stood and delivered full haymakers.
Really?
Not one bit of head movement. Took everything to the face. Like,
Yeah, nothing slick about it.
nothing slick about it, but it was like, this is the real deal. And like, that's where I felt like, all right, I'm invested in this show now. Like, I'm into it.
Yeah.
I've just fought a guy like full bore, and it felt like a street fight. Like, my headgear came off straight away. And again, it was just like on the front garden with Shannon Ponson just punching on full bore.
Hell, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So that
Imagine
was,
if you were like one of the mums walking her kids home in North Curl.
Yeah.
Like, is that Shannon Ponson? Is he punching?
Is that a
James
Shannon missile punching on? They must have had a disagreement.
Like, how did that not end up in the Daily Mail or something?
Missile and Shannon Ponton punching on. That's so funny.
He's the best bloke, but like one of the greats. Yeah,
He seems like a good dude. You can sort of tell just by looking at him.
Yeah.
Mate, you've given us a lot of your time, so we appreciate it. One thing I wanted to ask before we let you go is just around back to Cody Simpson. Fuck.
Just here, bro.
Sorry, dude. Just trying to get a gauge on like the feat that he has achieved. Like, where does that sit for you? Like, he's there fucking wiggling his dick on the big stage, and then now he's just come back. Make it, swimmers often seem to retire at the age he's at.
Yeah. So it's one of those sports, like, you can't fake it. There's no special treatment. It's like, touch the wall, where did I finish? That's whether I get selected or not. Even though Kyle gave him the little up yours, but he's still qualified for the common
That was
games.
intentional, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
of course.
cool. No,
Yeah.
it just was
And
like,
it is what it is. And
absolutely.
you know what? I love Kyle for that.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's mad. Like,
Yeah.
it is, take it for what it is. It's a sport where whoever touches the wall first gets selected. And if Kyle wants to do that, and Kyle's good enough,
Yes.
good luck to him.
Yeah, and he was.
And he was.
It was like, you're not, like, we're not on the stage here, bruh. This
Nah.
is my stage.
Yeah,
This is
exactly
my
right.
domain.
Yeah.
100%.
This is my
You're
domain.
not singing here, bro.
No.
Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I wish Swimming Australia lent into that a little bit more. Like, that's a good rivalry that could be billed. That could sell tickets, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
instead
fuck
they're
yeah.
like, no, nothing to see here. Like,
It's
they're
all
mates.
fine, yeah.
There's nothing
They're clearly
going
not
on.
fucking mates, right?
Yeah, no, they're not mates, and that's
Which is completely fine as well,
fine.
yeah.
I wasn't mates with everyone that I raced. I wasn't mates with anyone that I raced, really.
Yeah.
But Cody's like, I thought about this, and I spoke about it in my articles at the time. I've never seen a professional entertainer come and make it in a sport like that. Never seen it.
Yeah.
Like, it's madness.
It is crazy.
It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't buy hard work or talent. Like, he clearly is talented in swimming. Has to be. And he has to have done the work. There's no other way around it. There's no possible, like, magical thing that he could have paid for or that his celebrity status could have got him that shirks hard work or responsibility. He's done it.
Yeah.
And I don't know him that well, but, like, I applaud him because you can't, like, what other opinion can you have? He's done what he's done. Like, it's crazy.
5th at the Commonwealth Games in 18 months back or 2 years back.
Bloody
or something.
good.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think he can make it to the next Olympics? Or is it too far away?
Yes.
You think you can?
Yeah. I think he's got improvement in him. I think and whether he would admit this or not, I reckon he struggled with the occasion a little bit at Com Games, which happens your first international race, let alone when you're 26 years old or whatever. Like imagine at 26, like I was experiencing that at 18. He missed all that. Like he's had big crowds, but like we spoke about, getting on that block is just a bit different. His first experience of that is at 26 years of age. Like he can only improve from there. So I reckon he can drop another second or so in the next 2 years. And
where does that get him?
Why, but also, like, with age, a lot of swimmers are sort of over the hill at that stage, right? So what is it about? Is that more a burnout thing, do you reckon, as opposed to, like, you could actually still be
I
very
think it's
good
like
at
body breaking down type shit.
Right.
Like, you've been doing the same thing. Like, how many rotations are the human shoulder made to do? I'm sure we hit our limit at a pretty young age. Whereas he's probably let his body rejuvenate. He probably punished his body in other ways at times.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure he has.
supermodels.
Yeah.
But probably in terms of the physicality, he's probably rested up a bit. And so he'll peak later based on the fact that he didn't smash himself at a young age.
And where would a second quicker get him? Does that get him into an Olympic final?
Like, close, yeah. I'd say the ultimate goal for a Cody Simpson would be an Olympic final. Yeah, and it's doable. It's doable.
Dude,
he's
that'd
right
be
there.
wild.
Damn.
How's the way he immerses himself though, right? Like, so he's, well, I want to be a pop star or whatever. He dates arguably the most famous pop star in the world at the time. He comes across to swimming, dates the best swimmer in history from Australia. Like, he immerses himself.
He's no stranger to immersion.
No. He's all in.
Correct.
He's all in.
in.
And you
Shout
can't
out
help
to
but
him.
respect him for it.
Fucking oath.
If you had to, if we divide the teams here and you go Team Cody or Team Kyle, where do we sit?
That's it. You know what? It's tough because Team Kyle gets Aussie gold.
Oh, goal for the nation.
But Team Cody can also sing me to sleep.
But Team Kyle of recent history has got the tats, the bleached hair,
The bloody
moustache,
the
diamond
crucifix
earrings
and shit. Yeah, that's true.
There's a bit happening.
There's a lot happening. He won
It's
again.
it's like a recent thing too. He's
It
like,
is, yeah.
I've arrived.
Yeah, here we go. Hear me roar. I am Kyle. I like Kyle.
Is
Kyle's
he taking over like a little bit more of the pop star, whereas Cody's taking over a little bit more of the
Well, also
swimming?
Cody Simpson is like pretty jacked.
Dude, we spent like a
he's
whole
very
podcast
jacked.
looking at his body and his hog. He's completely jacked.
That's impressive, hey?
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't in that shape when he was singing. I don't remember.
No
way,
way.
dude.
I've got this image in my head of like slick black blonde hair and like petite.
It's kind of like
Almost.
scrawny-ish, wiry.
Yeah.
Now it's like, dude, you are
He looks like he could play NRL.
yoked. Yeah.
No, he's
and is
yoked.
he tall? How tall is he?
He's not very tall.
Not that
He's
tall.
not even 6 foot.
Nah.
He's not even 6
Oh,
foot.
he might be like 6 foot. I think he's like the same height as Emma.
Wow.
Whereas,
I
like,
just thought of him as being humongous.
Kyle would be my height, like 6'5".
Your Wikipedia said 6'7".
Really?
Yep.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
You take 6'7"? When you
take
walked in, I go, he's not 6'7".
So did I.
Nah.
I mean, he's not fucking
So
6'7".
First thing I thought, I go, no what?
No way.
6'7" would be like annoying, I reckon. Like, so a lot of door frames are around 2 meters, at 2 meters, and I'm 197.
Yeah.
So I can walk through any door with confidence. And
No, and you're not
sometimes
gonna
I'm with
scout
people and they're like,
yourself.
oof. But I walk through knowing this thing's 2 meters.
No, I'm good here. I've got it sorted.
If you're 6'7", you're like, you're probably ducking at everything, right?
Fuck
say
that.
so.
You wouldn't want to duck.
We're in a
too
Goldilocks
much.
zone, you and I. We don't have
6'1".
to duck shit. We're good.
6'1's good.
Yeah.
Well, mate, thank you very much for coming in. This has been fucking awesome.
Thank you.
Genuinely, really enjoyed it and great to meet you.
Loved it, mate.
Your gym. How do the fatties of the world find the gym?
Oh, I can just check us out on socials.
Yeah.
Tribe Marrickville. So I've got Tribe 2204. That's a postcode of Marrickville. Jump down. We had the producer from Joel and Fletcher's show in the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Whipped him into shape. Brooksy. You probably spoke to Brooksy.
Yeah,
on the
we've
phone,
spoken to
have you?
Brooksy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So yeah, come on down to Marrickville if you're in the area.
Bloody oath.
If you want to get yoked.
If you want to get yoked, exactly right. And also, we noticed obviously you got that Hello Sport hat there.
Yeah.
How long have you been a dribbler for? How'd you come to know us?
I think lockdown, I stumbled across you guys, and then as we all did during lockdown, had a lot of time, so I listened to a bit of back catalogue as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
Good stuff.
So I've got a good dribbler knowledge. And I've got some mates who are like fanatics.
Okay.
Yeah,
You like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So they're like, actually, you know what? I haven't told any of them that I'm coming on.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
just going to send them a picture and just go, guess where I am.
Yeah, we like
Freak.
that.
Yeah,
we
we
like
freak.
that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right,
You
mate.
send them our best.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
will do.
Tribe Marrickville.
Thanks for coming on, bro.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
bro.
guys.
Legend.
Could you two just not talk anymore?